stayed back.
Imagine using your Twitter for anything other than memes. Like, Jesus Christ. What is wrong with you people?
Did you like what you saw? That's my question.
I'm looking for these tweets so I can retweet one of them because there's no way I'm making my own tweet.
I just made a tweet. Just retweet
all right, let's
mine.
go, boys. We'll quickly take a look at Mauisnake's tweet. I think we can do that live on air. I think we have the technology.
Yeah,
we
can do it.
We do.
It's a good tweet. It's just a clean quote tweet of what you have.
There it is. Yeah,
easy.
He instantly got one retweet as well. I wonder who that's from. Go ahead and give that a look.
All right, I'm glad we could start the stream professionally.
There it is. All right, boys. We are indeed back for the final episode of ELO Heaven. It's number 19. It's been quite the era with this online stage, but this is indeed the end of it. The end of an era. That's even the title of the episode. That's why I'm crowbarring it in, but still seems a bit more graceful than some of the things that have been crowbarred into this major, like NIP actually making it out, which is the match.
Hold on. Before we go into NIP, let me ask you a question. All right.
Here we go.
It's classic ELO Heaven.
Classic ELO.
Do we actually think this is the end of the online era? Not in terms of like, it's not all online, but I feel like we're probably not going back to 2019 levels of LAN play. I feel like it's still going to remain a lot of online shit.
You think so?
It's gonna be online still. There's still gonna be a lot of group stages that are online, but I would hope that every tournament strongly considers making whatever their playoff portion is in person, or else it's gonna suck. Like, nobody's going to even want to watch the events that are just completely in person, start to finish.
I think it's a fair point to bring up that obviously a lot of online events specifically, even if you go back before the pandemic, like we obviously had a ton of situations where there would be a tournament that would do its like group stage play or its qualification to a LAN finals. Like I'm thinking of like ECS, for example, right? That was like a big one. So if we just do more stuff like that, I think that would probably be fine. At this point, fans and players are a bit more accustomed to, even at the top tiers, actually playing an online CS, which I recall actually being a contentious issue back in the day. If I'm thinking back to like 2018, maybe, when a lot of the top tier one pros were like, no, I don't want to play in these online leagues. But now I think people are just more.
Wasn't EPL like originally online groups, and then just nobody gave a shit? Just nobody cared.
I even casted like one of the days of EPL really early on in my career, and I think it was MIBR or something like that. Just didn't even show up to the game flat out. Literally, just didn't come. They were like traveling, and they're like, yeah, we can forfeit that game. It's fine. And I was like, that was the game I was supposed to cast. Like what?
And think about it this way too. That's actually still happening in like ESEA Premier. Well, teams will just quickly wildcard at the last second and screw up.
It's happening in the NA RMR, you know.
Yeah. At that too. Yeah, I don't think they could use a wild card in that situation. I think. The insert somebody sleeping on this team joke.
It's the best result EG had in all of 2021.
True,
it is
because someone slept through a game.
Cleanest win ever. Yeah.
There you go. So
Jesus.
All right. Well, I guess that brings us pretty nicely into the major, which is finally back into studio. And tomorrow we have a day off, but the day after that, because I just remembered it wasn't tomorrow, we have the arena. That's pretty cool. Finally get a crowd. Now, there's been a lot of talk behind the scenes. I'm sure you guys are in your own caster group chats, some of which I'm included in and some of which I'm surely not. The caster group chat I'm in, that neither of you guys are in, is pretty banging recently. We've been doing a lot of watch parties, basically. And one of the things that keeps coming up there, I'll shout out Yumi, is he kept saying that Gambit in particular, or Bit on NaVi, some of these players are just not arena proven, specifically arena proven, not LAN proven, because we've had studios. Do you reckon that some of this will apply to NIP as well? They're the team that narrowly squeaked by, and what personally to me is not a convincing victory over Copenhagen Flames, who sure they're the upstart, and yeah, there's a lot of pressure on NIP. But I just feel like at this point, can you really trust them to make it through the hardship that's going to come from being in a home country, like capital city, right? Like this is a big deal for these guys, the Swedish ones on the roster. And Device hasn't looked his old self. Like, do we think the arena buff is enough for Device and isn't going to nerf some of the more inexperienced players? That's my first question to you, Vu.
You're going to me first. I was going to lead this one directly to Mauisnake.
Okay, well, you can bounce it over.
Mauisnake is the guy that I've got one monitor here. I'm watching the game. I click Twitter. Mauisnake mentioned Linus. Like that's like it feels like every time I click on Twitter, Mauisnake has mentioned Linus in some way. This feels like
go, Alex.
his pet guy to tweet about.
Linus. Well, today he was popping off. I would say, to get back to your question, I would say that There's a handful of teams though that are not arena proven, and there's a lot of players on even NaVi. Even NaVi has players that are not arena proven. So I actually think that will affect a lot of the teams relatively evenly. I mean, I think this is where we're gonna have to find out because we're going into the dark a little bit on some of the teams. But we got some like playoff brackets already here, and one team that probably people aren't considering to do well, or like two teams actually, but have a lot of arena experience is FURIA and VP. Like 4 of those guys have been on huge stages before for both of those teams. Whereas you look at even NaVi and Perfecto and Bit both have practically no LAN experience. And you look at, NIP, I don't think Hampus ever played in front of a big arena. Linus definitely didn't. Like most of the teams have 2 or more players that don't have much LAN XP, but VP and FURIA, they actually should be able to calm their nerves better than anybody.
You think it's the nerves that are the biggest problem? Because when I'm thinking about like an arena buff, a lot of what I'm thinking about are like the dumb bullshit that like top players know how to use, right? Like nades sounding right next to people, looking at walls. Like it almost feels like to me, a lot of these players, they should have been in high pressure enough situations before that they've shown up in. I mean, Linus seemed to show up pretty well in overtime of a must win, right? Like that's pretty high pressure, pretty much as high pressure as it can get. But what I'm thinking is it's not necessarily going to be that much of a nerf in my mind to a lot of these players. Maybe there are players that struggle a little bit, but most of these players probably not. I think it's going to be more of a outright buff to the people that know how to abuse this system really well. You know what I mean?
Could be a legit factor. I mean, I remember when we first started talking about this way back, this is probably single-digit episodes. So we were talking about how, you throw a flashbang or hear a nade and like the sound of it will reverberate from the speakers. You can kind of hear that. That means that the spectators were following the nade. You can probably estimate that there's probably somebody there in the near area. The other thing is if you see like a big flash, that means that, obviously a flashbang went off. Like maybe the monitor's above you guys, but you see it, somewhere else. So stuff like that can definitely happen. And some of these players just haven't been at that event, right? They haven't been at that kind of event before. So it is a bit nerve wracking if you're one of these fans of maybe Nip, maybe Gambit, like one of those situations.
So I think it's going to be, it's going to be both for sure. The tricks that you can use on LAN, like you still see a couple of the LAN players do it. Like Olaf, for example, if he thinks a person is behind a wall, he'll kind of like shake his crosshair around that person, hoping for a reaction. But online, it just looks kind of dumb. Like there's no point in doing it.
Well, they know he's not going to hit that shot anyway, so why would you get hyped?
Yeah, especially Olaf online, right? Yeah, but when you use the tricks, and then there is more. I think there's more pressure. I'd say that. I would say like when you walk out on that stage and you see a mob of people, saying your name. You have to come out from underneath the stadium, walk through that big line. That's when some of the nerves hit you. Players will play through that. Like, I kind of feel like every time I work on a new desk, the first couple minutes on it in person kind of are a little bit like, oh, wow, this feels like a new environment. But then you just get back in the flow of things and you don't even think about it at all. So I think, like, I think what's going to be fun to think about is who are going to be the pistol gods in the the first couple rounds, kind of who's going to have their nerves immediately when they sit down. And that's when I'm going to look at players like Nico and Simple.
Yeah, if they've got if they've got good sports psychologists, they should be able to get over that. You would think they would be able to get over it in like a few rounds, or maybe you have a map, right? Like usually I think like a first map, it can kind of be pretty random. But after that, you're hoping that most people don't get in their heads where they're like freaking out about it. The other thing that I've seen someone mention is just the amount of, actually, I know exactly where this was mentioned. I believe it was Stiko mentioned it in his review with Launders way back. Is it way back? I don't even know how long ago it is. Yeah, they were talking about, Stiko was talking about all the sound cues on Nuke that you wouldn't even think about in arenas.
Oh yeah,
but you can hear it all online, and
that's
so you're hearing people are reacting to all of this way more. And so teams like Gambit that play a lot of off of that information, and also might not be that used to the arena, I think for their IGL at least, that could also be potentially a bit of a nerve.
Oh,
I would say,
yeah, big deal, by the way, that infamous 1v5 that won Pro League for Cadian, that was almost entirely based off of, crucial parts of that kill were like sounds that maybe have a chance to not even play, and then other sounds that like none of them you're going to even hear in an arena.
Oh, the one where the guy's like, he gets shot behind triple.
Yes,
like, I don't know if you're hearing that online.
Well, he never wins that because he never gets the knife kill because the crowd's
like, ooh.
I've got the video on this.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
There's no shot he gets a knife kill there on land. They turn around every time.
Well, I mean, the obvious joke has already been made in the chat, which is maybe the PGL observers don't even get
But you might see less smoke spams also, actually.
Sure, yeah.
Because a lot of the time you can hear people, you tag them through a smoke, or someone is watching you and they hear it. And
I'm actually kind of surprised
I'm
surprised we saw as much audio play as we did, because this event is one of the first ones, maybe the first one in CS that uses those specifically designed for esports like noise canceling headsets.
Yeah, but they're still using earbuds under it. Like, I don't understand what the real difference is other than the mic.
I have not heard any pro talk about that. It's one of those things where you'd expect maybe some shoulder content where they're like, here's the difference between.
Well, the thing is, if no pros have complained about it, it has to be the best thing ever.
That's
like,
right.
It's just
That's
CS
true.
pros. But they're not really, because my understanding is that you're supposed to use them as headphones. And they have the game sound and white noise coming in.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to use earbuds, but they're all using earbuds under it anyways. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be any different, except for the mic, because the mic is supposed to cancel out caster audio, which used to come in through mics like a decent amount, right? So other than the mic, it seems like the same shit from my understanding.
Yeah, maybe we'll get more information on that when we actually do switch over to arenas. We have a bit more shoulder content, but we can talk a little bit more in depth about NiP and Copenhagen Flames real quick. I just wanted to mention that this doesn't feel like by any means a comfortable win. It was obviously a very competitive series where, Copenhagen Flames took their map pick 16-10. Then we go into Inferno, where it looks pretty good for the upstart Danish roster, but they eventually end up capitulating to a second round forced by a CT side. We get all the dramas, and then we end up on Ancient, which comes all the way back to OT, where you actually favor, in some ways, Copenhagen Flames on the CT side of OT. They have all the momentum, and then they end up dropping one round, which ends up in their demise in the grand scheme of things. Do you guys think this means NiP are just not going to be favorites in any further matchup? Do you think they can heat up and salvage? Like, what's the sort of prognosis for them as a team? Because at this point, I feel almost like, their first matchup against G2, that should almost always go the way of Nico and company.
I would say that in the online era, this would be 100% NIP favored.
Okay.
But on LAN, it looks like G2 are the better team. They proved it. I will say I wouldn't write off any of the like Copenhagen Flames players though, or even though it's kind of like this felt a little random. When you really watch them, like they have a ton of skill, and the way that they play out rounds is really well thought out. For like, there's not a lot other than when they were choking as they were trying to plant on Ancient over and over again without clearing anything at all. Like that was
pretty bad.
That was nerves. That was some
fucking painful. That was pain.
A lot of rounds lost to just a whiffed smoke here and there, and that like short or long area, whatever the fuck. What is that area called when you're coming up T and like it's the right hand side of the lane?
The right side. So I was just talking to Flom and Adren about that. We called it like. I called it like V1, V2, but Flom just calls it slant. And I think slant is an easier
I guess
way to
because
call
there
it.
is a bit of a sloped angle there, right? So.
Yeah, there's a sloped angle on both of those areas. So
literally, when I ask people about that, they're like, yeah, I just call it first corner, second corner.
Whatever
the fuck.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, shout out to a specific caster whose name I won't mention for the sake of not ruining his career, where he told me that one of them is called long and the other is short when it's a fucking square and they're all the same length.
They're the same length. They're the same length.
Had to get that one in there. We love inside jokes on ELO Heaven. Now, one thing I will levy, although Copenhagen Flames seemed like whenever they got on into Eco on T side, this happened on Inferno multiple times and on Ancient multiple times, they rush out with their Glocks or their low upgraded pistols. They go straight out mid, and they don't drain any utility. They don't work any picks. They don't slow things down and take like an extended, pseudo timeout, if you will. They have no opportunities at that point to like catch their breath and prepare for the next round and maybe feel out some tendencies for how NiP are playing. That feels so like a huge missed opportunity for me, and that may have even, maybe they get lucky in a conversion, but maybe they just get equipped with the information necessary to, drain the pockets of NiP and also understand how exactly they're playing these CT sides. I feel like that secures so many more T rounds potentially for them, or at least one, which is all they needed on a map like Ancient, for example.
I noticed that immediately too. It's something I was talking about with people I was watching with, and it's like VP is one of my favorite teams. Like I have no qualms with the team taking their time, And they do it for very obvious reasons that you burn, about $1,100, $1,200 worth of utility. And you saw that they actually, after they did that round, then they won the next round, and NIP forced the following round, and you could see NIP's utility was like a FAMAS with one smoke, one flash. If you burned just a couple more nades in that time, they have to go downgrade to an MP9, buy all the utility, and then they have worse guns. They had like an M4 with just a smoke is not that great of a buy, and if you burned one more nade, they couldn't even have got that. So I totally agree with you. That's a great observation.
What did you make of the Flames in this tournament, Vu? Do you have any parting words for these guys, or is it just GG, not one of the best teams in the world?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty impressive. I mean, I really thought they fucking threw Ancient. I mean, not like so threw it, but that their T side, they got a lead, and it almost, you see this sometimes when there's like upsets coming, or at least what people think are upsets, or the team themselves think are upsets, where you get to like 13, 14 rounds, and you're like, in their mind, they're like, oh shit, we're going to beat this team that we thought we had no shot of beating. Yeah. And that's when it all crumbles. And it almost felt like that on their T side, where they were up, what was it, like 8-4 or 7-4 or something? They were up like pretty heavily. Yeah. And then they just started planting in the open, not clearing corners, just crumbling. They just started crumbling. Yep. It almost felt like they got to the point where like, wow, we're going to win this game. And then shit the bed. And then they kind of brought it back a little bit, but they just couldn't get it over the line. I think if they just don't let it slip at all, they just win.
If they played it 100 the whole time, it was a done deal. NIP would be out of this tournament.
Do we think that NIP, like, okay, this is kind of a loaded question, right? Maybe nobody picks this one up, and that's fine. We go next. But does NIP actually deserve to have made champion stage here? They got the worst opening 2 draws for people who are doubters, by the way. Remember, people who might like jump to say no, they don't. Like, it's crazy that they almost lost to Copenhagen, but they lost to NaVi and then Gambit. Like, these are some of the hardest teams to beat, right?
They lost to those teams, but when they lost to NaVi and Gambit, those games weren't even competitive. So in a way, like it makes a lot of sense that they're 3-2. There's clearly, in my eyes, a tier list going into the playoffs. Yep. And before the tournament, I would have put NaVi on 1 tier and then NIP on whatever tier 2 is. But now I probably slot them a couple tiers beneath a few of the teams, because those wins or those losses were incredibly convincing. And then you look at the BO1s that they won, and those aren't even good wins either. I mean, it's against Maus and Astralis. Like, those teams weren't even really that close to making it in my eyes. So if you barely kind of, I don't think they barely won those games, like 16-12 over Maus, and then they did batter Astralis, but like the way they lost to Gambit and NaVi was like, damn, you guys are just not even on the same playing field.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I've considered this from the previous comment where you mentioned the fast that plays in mid. So I noticed this on Inferno, that NIP have this like tendency. I saw it a couple of times where they're on anti-eco and they just hold all of their util and they play super fucking passive. Is that what NIP typically does on anti-ecos?
On CT?
Yeah, on CT, yeah.
I feel like they usually will just like fight, but top it out a lot.
Yeah, because I saw a couple of rounds where they just kind of held everything. I thought that might have been a response on Ancient. Maybe they were going fast because of what happened and because NIP plays a little bit passive, but maybe it was just a couple specific rounds. But should NIP have made it? Their fucking T sides, man, are non-existent. Holy shit. Like, I actually looked at the stats. I mean, it's not that surprising. In the last 3 months, they don't have a single map where they have winning T sides over 50%. It's not crazy surprising. Most maps are T-sided or CT-sided, but still, if you look at like Gambit will have a map or two where they have like a 60% T-side. NIP just don't have winning T-sides ever. They're just
even on their supposed home maps. Yeah,
they don't really literally every single map over the last 6 months. I think there was one map at 50.1%.
Yo, they actually, I just looked at the major stats. They have of the teams that qualified for the playoffs, NIP have by far the worst T side with a 29% win rate, and like Gambit, who's the second worst of the teams that qualified, have a 42%. So it's like not even close. Yeah, it's a huge gap. That's 29 to 42 jump.
They really do just completely disappear on T sides, and it's super noticeable. I mean, to be fair, this is happening a lot in this major. The game, I'm going to this goes against everything I stand for because I've been against T-sided maps my entire life.
Here we go.
The game is a little bit too CT-sided right now,
yeah.
and there's so many fucking games that are like opening up like 10-1 or 9-2 or something, and people are like, this is over already. And then it's just swap sides and it just immediately back the other direction. Like, I think people are still kind of adjusting to that scoreline. Something should be probably done, but I mean, like you said, like, what you said, 26% T-side conversion?
29% win rate
compared to 40. That's pretty fucking bad. That's pretty,
even for this
pretty
meta,
bad.
That's very bad. Yeah. So the thing is, right, people are starting to adjust, like you're saying, Vu. Now, one of the things that I've started to realize is that if an underdog team on the opponent pick, like the opponent map pick, this is the case with Copenhagen Flames on Inferno, pretty much everybody in the group chat, right, they were all saying like, if they don't get 10 rounds here, this is really ugly for them. Like 10 rounds CT side opening half, that's becoming an expectation on a map like that. If you're really on a hot streak, especially. And if you close at 9-6, but then get the pistol on T side, you can negotiate it. But it seems like if NIP are ever starting T side, the momentum is going to wholly be against them the entire game, which is really dangerous if they're supposed to try to contend with some of their opponents on their map picks and then, you know, have their own that are supposed to give them across the finish line. And as Mauisnake said earlier, they didn't look convincing at all, even competitive really with NaVi and then with Gambit. NaVi you might even be able to understand, but Gambit maybe not so much, right? Some doubts going into this major in general with them. I actually didn't rate Gambit as making it out super convincingly, but they were pretty quick to surprise me. So, and you know what? Speaking of Russian teams, I actually do want to ask Mauisnake. You mentioned you really like VP, like they're one of your favorite teams. Obviously,
yes.
I see Thorin tweet about VP very negatively.
Yeah. He did. In all fairness, Thorin picked them as the dark horse, but at the same time, he's almost like I don't know. I was going to make a horse-themed joke, but I don't know anything about horses. So I think he was going to send them to the glue factory. That's pretty much
yes. That's what you got to do. It's the glue factory for the horses.
Can we talk about VP because Sanji died for this, Maui?
Go for it. I mean, okay. I think this move is incredible, though. I really think this is great.
Okay.
I think people have always, in a way, overrated just trash support players, just flat out.
Okay.
I think that's always been kind of one of my gripes with the scene, that people are like, but look at the look at Taco staying alive for so long. It's like, dude, like, you know what's also cool? Killing 2 people with the guns and weaponry that you have. You know, that's always nice. Sanji got probably the shortest end of the stick among all support players, and he still put up like, it was a red rating on HLTV for almost every tournament. But it wasn't like he was usually at the very bottom of a tournament, so I got to give him a little credit. But Flit is just another beast, man. Like Flit in some of these middle kind of lurk positions. So he lurks apartments on Inferno, he lurks connector on Overpass, and he lurks mid on Vertigo. And I think he's the reason that they get so much value. Like, they have contingency plans in rounds because Flit knows timings. He knows how to win in the defaults. He's seriously so much better. It's not even close how much better he is on CT side. The only thing that I think we're seeing right now from VP that's concerning is that James is getting a drop-off. Like, his performance at this major is not as good. He's getting the op in his hands less, and even when he has it, he's not having the same level of impact that he did in previous tournaments, like even recent ones. So it's a little bit of a give and a take. But for me right now, I'm willing to take the slight drop off in James and the amount of chances he gets for a significantly better rifler.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you have to recognize is like I feel like you have to have a very specific group of players to just like designate someone that's just as good as everyone else to be the guy that's like takes the shit end of the stick 100% of the time. Usually there's a correlation there that like you're getting the shit end of the stick omega hard because you're not quite where you need to be. So we're just going to put you in every bad spot permanently. But I mean, I 100% agree that support players do get overrated a little bit because I don't know. I guess people just can't contextualize it themselves, and then you just have support players that just can't shoot back. But nobody's really watching like individual players. Nobody's going through a demo and watching all of this player and seeing how many times they fuck shit up. But also, like sometimes, like if you look at Olaf, he's got like this little on Mirage specifically. I've noticed this. He's got this little way of lurking middle on A hits where he like is super duper delayed, and I think it's basically born of the fact that he can't take a more aggressive lurk because he's going to lose the duel. So he super ultra delays it, and then he gets red because that's the only lurk he goes for. Like, that's a problem in itself, and you have to like understand the whole train to like get to that point. It causes some problems. But I mean, on to Flit. Fuck, man, I wanted Flit on NaVi. Like Flit is the guy they wanted on NaVi instead. I think it was for Perfecto, right? They
went
to get
for
him.
Perfecto instead.
And Force says he's not for sale. Like they're fucking talking about livestock here. He's not for fucking sale. Like, and he doesn't want to join anyways. But he's not.
Why
for
would
sale.
I want to join Simple? You know, come on, man. I'll stay with Jerry.
I mean, this is to say that, like, I remember back then, some people were talking about, I don't know why the fuck they'd want to pick up Flit. I mean, this is another example. This is another team that went straight for Flit. Obviously, people are seeing things. I thought Flit was, like, when I was watching a lot of fours, you know, several months ago, Flit was a very impressive player in my mind. And also, I feel like you got to credit Jerry a little bit. Like, this is just weird, but to slot a player directly in from a lower tier team, I guess, I think you have to have a pretty decent system running in the previous team.
You mean Jerry or Jame or both?
Jerry, Jerry from Fours to have Flit immediately slot into another team
when he joins Fours.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking this specifically in regards to NACS, where you bring in a tier 2 player and they have no fucking clue how to play the game, and it takes months to actually get him in the system. Whereas Flit has slotted in pretty effectively for his first tournament. I don't know how long he's practiced with them for. That's the question.
I don't think it's very long at all, but the thing that's nice is that Flit gets a lot of the spots that SANJI played, Flit also played. But he's just like on T sides especially, a lot of the like Flit was always like, okay, Jerry called a lot of 4-1s on T side, and Flit was always the one. And so when he gets to lurk on VP a little bit, it's basically his comfort zone. His timings are really good, and he's not like, oh man, he's not like ropz timings or anything like that. Like, he actually like will go. Like, he'll actually flank during a hit. It's actually so nice. Like, sometimes like you can tell a lurker is like, oh, but I want to keep the pressure on, but they just never end up taking the fight, so people just ignore them. Flit makes you pay attention to him.
I like the ropz timing comment. The ropz, because I watched a lot of ropz, and ropz is like, if this isn't a gunfight, that I win every time.
Yeah, he needs a 90%.
Not taking that shit. Like, I'm not. No, thank you. I'm waiting until I guaranteed win this fight. Then I'll take it.
Why do we think that is? Just as a brief aside onto ropz specifically, because it's not
like killing people is better than not. I don't know. It's just like I just imagine it's just the way.
Is he such a pivot player that on the T side specifically, if he dies, then the whole rest of the team just knows, like, oh, we know Mao's only lurk him out, so there's nobody else here. Quick, everybody stack the other side. Like, is that why? Like, what's the higher reasoning for that?
Well, it's more fun to be alive than be dead.
Okay.
So I think he just wants to have the most fun possible.
I mean, it's just got to be like just a personality thing. Like, that's just how some people play, right?
I would chalk it up to the fact that I think ropz actually does go into almost every single engagement and gives himself like does a little like mini calculation in his head, and he's like, okay, I have an 80% chance to win this. I will swing. Ooh, my chance is only 45%. Let me wait for a better timing, and then I'll go for this fight. And it does cost Mao's timings a lot of the time. It costs him potential, and sometimes you'll even watch the X-ray of a ropz perspective, and it's like, dude, they just weren't even looking at you. Like, you actually just missed something here. So it's, you know, it's a guessing game that he plays a lot, and he just wants to be, like Vu said, he wants to be sure that he's gonna win.
It's one of those things that, like, okay, so this is something that's been talked about a little bit, like once in a while you hear it, where sometimes people are really good star players, they IGL for a little bit, and then they're just never the same player again. I almost feel like that's like to turn your brain off and like know that you're just better and just go shoot them thing is sometimes valuable, which is in theory what we're talking about ropz not doing, where he's kind of just like, I'm going to take the best fight ever, which isn't always like, I mean, it's a good way to be a great player, but if you're not on the best team ever, I don't think that's how you necessarily carry sometimes.
Would you say that's a useful talent to have as like a second best on your team, but not if you're the superstar, basically? That seems to be a defining trait of a lot of the criticism that ropz get, is like, he's not he is the win condition, but he doesn't play like he has that level of resources or level of responsibility even.
So there was a period when Dexter was first getting integrated to Maus, when I think ropz kind of freed himself up and he started going for more entry duels on T side. And I remember the percentage was like 1 out of 3 T side round victories on Nuke for Mousesports were at the hands of a ropz opener. So he, that's crazy, honestly, that he had to do that much work. So he started running through smokes a little bit at ramp. He started taking fights at door, even occasionally going for a hut fight. And that kind of showed to me he can do it, but it's just simply not in his nature. And even though he had that nice streak online of finding those openers, at this major, I didn't see the same proactive play from him. And that's obviously incredibly concerning when you have a guy that is seriously so talented and can deliver you those kills, but then when he gets to the biggest stage, he doesn't go for it as much. I'm actually looking for the opening percentages for him, but yeah, that's basically my take on him.
Yeah, I haven't, to be honest, most of Maus's games were on the second stream, and I didn't see too much of them this event.
Well, that's okay.
Well, not even that they were on the second stream. I specifically thought Maus was going to lose, and I was like, I don't care to watch this garbage.
They took VP surprisingly close. I thought that they were they sort of looked like a real team, surprisingly, in a few of those rounds. But
that one was a bit heartbreaking, given I know the analyst for Maus. I was watching that with him, and that was a little bit sad.
Shout out Koi, crying fish. Maybe he'll start to swim again sometime soon. The salty lakes of EU. He's not adapted to it. That's why.
One thing that was nice to see was Mahone actually getting in some screen time after after they got that victory against just now or whatever, against Copenhagen Flames. Yeah, I was like, oh wow, an NA representative.
Almost forget Mahone exists sometimes.
He doesn't get a lot. Doldrums for so long.
Yeah.
I see him online on Steam, and I'm like, oh yeah. Mahone worked for at IP. I forgot.
He could have gotten the Innershine treatment if Threat just did that coach bug once, man. Just follow in Hunden's footsteps, bro. Come on, bro. Come on.
Just literally give, and then Mahone would have the job. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think. Okay, go ahead.
One last point on ropz.
Sure, go for it.
So at Flashpoint, it was shocking how many opening T-side duels ropz took. He took 23% at Flashpoint. Flashpoint when they won the whole tournament. So. It worked. It worked on that. At the major, 15 or 14.8% opening attempts. So, imagine
he's just going for less, or he's succeeding significantly less.
Oh, those are attempts.
Okay.
So he's going for 8% less attempts at the major. Yeah. So it's like you can't even, as an IGL, I almost feel for Dexter. It's like, ropz, you used to just kill everybody at the beginning of rounds. Now you're not even trying. It's like, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do if you're Dexter, that a guy that in defaults was finding you openers is not even trying to find them now?
That's actually one of the most frustrating things ever. And it kind of makes it's kind of similar to the Apex comment where he says if ZywOo doesn't show up, we're probably not making playoffs. If you put everything into not even if you put everything into one player, but I mean, it's especially understandable for Vitality. They put everything into one player. But if you have a player that just what you can expect out of them, and then you get into a match. I've had this where you have a player in scrims you hear this sometimes that players are nuts in scrims. It's actually the most frustrating shit ever because you gain a style in scrims where it's okay, we know how this player is going to play. You go into a match and they play completely differently. And it's just everything you practice is gone to fucking shit. And there's no shot you can win. Not because they're just playing a totally different style, basically.
Speaking of totally different styles, I mean, you obviously you teed up a pretty great segue here when you're referencing ZywOo.
I know. Thank you.
It's almost like you've done this show before. That's crazy. So obviously we're going to be talking about Vitality here. I think they looked absolutely terrible in their opening matches. Really disappointing that they didn't come out swinging a little bit harder or at least competitive. The fact that, obviously they almost dropped that series against Astralis, if anybody wasn't watching that because it was on the second stream. And then they obviously just had just a really rough time of it, barely qualifying, almost at elimination, a few times in this tournament. It felt rocky and it didn't feel okay. One thing that I'll also say that I was quite shocked by is that the reason why Apex makes that statement, and the reason why there's that meme going around where I think somebody may have tweeted this, maybe not, that he obviously got 5 missed calls from Apex. Just wake up, bro. We need you. So
I've just been making shitty memes on Twitter over and over.
It's a copy pasta or something now, bro. So
I don't know. It's surprisingly performed very well.
Yeah.
Taking on a life of its own.
It's always the shitty ones that actually work, right?
That one was probably one of the worst ones. I feel like I've done better. I don't know. They're entertaining, and you know who's not entertaining? Kyojin. I fucking hate watching Kyojin.
I did like your tweet, Mauisnake. If we're talking about tweets, I liked your tweet when you said Kyojin, the worst tier 1 site anchor, just got a 3K against Astralis. Pack your bags, boys. Like,
yeah,
that's it. That was
that's
the tone
right
of Nuke,
there.
at least. Yeah. So why don't we talk a bit about Vitality at this tournament so far? Specifically, I want to know where the fuck ZywOo went in the opening matches, but also whether or not we think that he's going to come back online in the arena. Because at this point, like, he was actually, I've never thought I would say this about Vitality. He was actually one of the reasons why they lost those opening rounds.
Yeah. I mean, the games were against 2 teams that also qualified. So I would actually say this draw is a little bit unfavorable. Like VP and Heroic, those are 2 pretty tough teams to start the whole tournament against. And they barely lost. The VP one, they started really slow. Apex actually messaged me right after the game, and he just like, with unprompted, just kind of said like, oh, we just started super slow there. Like, we literally, like, no one was taking any of the duels they would normally take for the first 8 rounds in this game. And when I looked back at it after he said that, I was kind of like, oh, you like that's kind of true. That's kind of true on why you guys had a slow start. Like, they were down, I think they were in the hole something like 6-2 against VP or something like that. And it kind of felt like that was a slow start for them. But the ZywOo stuff, I don't have a great answer, because it just feels like it's not really in ZywOo's personality to always force the issue like a simple will. Like, it's just simply not in his play style. So but that being said, he wasn't even getting the multi-frags we're used. Like, I saw more ZywOo whiffs in those openers than I'm very much so used to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's completely true. Like, if his team is not showing up, ZywOo, I feel like, will go down with the ship. Like, he's on the ship, and the ship is sinking, and he's going down with the ship. And he's not necessarily pulling out all the stops to make sure that you win that I mean, not that he's like, I don't want this extra round. It's just like he's just going with the system, I think.
Yeah.
There definitely was, I don't know, I don't have the stats in front of me, but it seemed like I've heard that he's not done great at the previous majors. There was definitely several whiffs in the first couple of games. And then it did feel like there was a moment where, like, he clearly turned on, and maybe the game against the tier 5 EG like gave him time to like come online.
I think that helped. I think that really helped him. Actually, they needed that game. If that were even like the VP or Vitality of 3 days ago does not beat Entropiq today.
Yep,
I just don't.
That is fair. That is fair. And remember, like, I mean, even the Entropiq series was so close. I didn't catch much of that, but the Mirage game almost certainly should have been Entropiq's, and the fact that they dropped that map and still make it a 2-1 series, by the way, like, I don't know, man. That's one of the few predictions I got correct for this stage, by the way, guys. I did say Entropiq would go 2 and 3. No, just say
2 and 3. Okay, dude. Honestly,
meaningless prediction for the fucking Pick'ems video, but still got it.
I watched like the second and third map of Entropiq Vitality, and dude, my sleep schedule is messed up for this. Like, I'm waking up at midnight and I'm going to bed.
Why don't you just live in Europe, dude? It's just so much easier.
Better.
It probably started at 11 a.m.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's beautiful. That's awesome. But I'm going to bed at 7:30 p.m. waking up at midnight, and I literally watched the second and third map, and I just couldn't tell you what happened. Like, it's just a blur. So hard.
Yeah,
it's just so hard for me right now. Yeah,
no, that's fair. I mean, I know is that there was a pretty demonstrable lead, at least a few rounds into, like, they were at 14-12 at one point, and then Apex 1v5s them. That's the highlight clip I saw, and at that point, like, okay, well,
yeah. I mean,
wasn't
Entropiq
a 1v5, it was a 5K.
Probably should have. I think it was a 1v3 with an ace.
Yeah.
Entropiq probably should have won map 1. I mean, the thing is, you can never know how map 2 is going to go if they do win map 1. Yeah. It's the same thing with, like, the simple knife against Liquid, where everyone's they would have 2-0'd. You never know how it would have gone if that hadn't happened, right? You never know. But in theory, Vitality definitely could have been out of this tournament.
Yes.
And I think it was really kind of just the end, which is the opposite. What are you expecting? I think with the Mirage comeback, a lot of it was individuals showed up and kind of carried the team on their back for a few big rounds.
Yep.
Which is what you're expecting from Entropiq. I mean, you're expecting Entropiq, CIS team, they show up, they have individuals show up, they get a lot of kills. That's kind of what felt like initially was happening a decent amount. But yeah, I mean, Entropiq certainly could have just 2-0. It's
I think it's sad for Entropiq. I thought Entropiq was going to...
They are a legit team.
Yeah, I would have pegged Entropiq as making it through. I mean, it's very easy to do this when you see the state of affairs, but when they 2-0'd and they got Liquid and they took out Gambit, like, how do you not pick this team to make it through? Yes. Like, the chance of them not making it through, I would say probably sub 25%, you know, like maybe, like, if you want to be realistic, it's 33% roughly, you know, they're going to win one of the 3 next series. And then they lost to FURIA. Like, what, dude? What?
That's the disappointing one.
Yeah, that one. The other one's a little bit more forgivable. You know, powered up G2 and a Vitality that finally found some form. But against FURIA, man, like, oh god, that's real. I feel bad for Hooch. I feel bad for the players on Entropiq, but they'll have other chances.
For 3 of the players on Entropiq, because I actually keep score, and I remember that 2 of them were on Hard Legion. 400 rounds, by the way.
Forrester and Crad. Yeah. Forrester and Crad, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The homies.
Yeah. Fuck's sake.
Yeah, I'm keeping score. Nobody else is.
My quote from the Challenger stage, by the way, was, you think some fucking idiot named Nickelback is going to make it out of Spirit World?
We were talking about this in Boo's Discord. Shout out Boo's Discord. And I was like, I posted my pick'em, which I got all 7 teams predicted correct, by the way. Just a little pat on myself. But I did say, like I was like, yeah, Entropiq will make it, and Spirit will probably crumble. And then he's like, that's an aggressive pick'em, but no shot. Nickelback makes it over Team Spirit.
No shot, fucking Nick. I mean, listen, they're fucking. I mean, they've got a lot going for them. I feel like the first thing I noticed about Entropiq is Elian's fucking nuts.
Yeah,
but even I feel like there's a lot more going for them than just Elian being good, Lackey showing up. I feel like Entropiq could definitely. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see this FURIA game. I don't know how the fuck they lost to FURIA. I felt like that was a write-off. Like, I had Entropiq. I'm like, yep, 3-0. Like, they're out. Was it 3-0 or did they already lose one before that? Oh, they lost to G2 before that. Well, yeah, I thought they were for sure through, and then they lost to FURIA. I don't know. I feel like they've got a lot of promise for future events. Another fucking CIS team. Who would have thunk it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. God. People say you're muted in chat. For some reason, I hear you, but people say you're muted.
That's what we call an OBS mistake. That's okay. All I said was Heroic are cheaters. Fuck them, and you know, fuck this major. That's what I said. No, I said Cadian wins that clutch. The player cam stayed on. Shocking. The player cam stayed on.
That's wild.
And yeah, PGL muted me, guys. So. That's where we're at. What do you guys think about Heroic making it through? Because this is I didn't expect them to make it. I'll be honest. I totally had them like off. I didn't have Copenhagen Flames making it either, to be fair. But
I almost said I didn't have Heroic in my Challengers phase.
I had them in both.
I'm pretty sure I did. I didn't have them go through here though. They did not like impress me in the previous stage at all.
I thought they were gonna make it. I mean, I think that the thing about Heroic that's nice is that in a way they don't need like some excellent. Even though Cadian's like a pretty good emotional leader, it seems like I've seen him choke on LAN just for the past like 6 years of watching this game, and so I don't really like put it up to him though. I think right now he finally has a team where you don't need like. There's almost in a way. Like, there's clearly focal points for who is kind of supposed to succeed in a round for Heroic, but it never always has to boil down to, oh man, like, Shush was set up for 3 kills and he only got 1, right? It's actually so consistent that everybody plays really well for this team. And I think that right now, Heroic are just so, like, I'm a little surprised they beat Copenhagen Flames, too, but I'm not necessarily surprised, like, based off the maps, I kind of felt like Copenhagen Flames should have taken that one. You know, they got Nuke and Ancient, which is just like Copenhagen Flames run those maps,
Sure.
so I don't really. But then Heroic's T side it just went massive for them. They're able to like their calling style isn't always even necessarily super impressive. If I remember correctly, like a couple of the rounds came down to like a few like 3v3 type situations, and they're surprisingly like pretty composed in those. And I think that's because everybody can take a little bit of initiative and just know like what needs to be done in this round to pull it off.
I feel like Heroic might actually be able to win and get to the semis. But I also did say, I was just like faffing about with the guys, right? And one of the things that I said was that if Heroic win the major, it might actually be the end of CS. This is maybe a surprising or confusing take, but sure. I mean, I don't expect ESIC to ban them or anything, but I do think that like it would be the ultimate fucking asterisk team. Not that they did anything untoward in the major in this competition, but the fact that a team with that history, with that asterisk next to them, makes it all the way to the final and takes it all. It's highly unlikely. They'll probably end up dropping in the semis if they get there.
I feel like that would also kind of, I mean, it wouldn't be great in some people's minds, but that would also kind of not absolve them, but it would probably kind of put that in the background that a major where they almost certainly couldn't have cheated in a real way.
Yeah.
I mean, other than like if you call the Artie, it's like looking at a wall cheating or whatever you want to fucking call that shit, right? But then they just win that. I feel like that would immediately just like throw everything out. I don't think there's any shot they're fucking winning this. Like personally, I'm on with Mauisnake in that I just like I look at Cadian. When I think Heroic, I think Cadian's gonna suck on LAN, and I can't predict that they win anything. Like that's literally my thought process about Heroic. Unfortunately, because Cadian has been like in the online era, Cadian has been fucking nuts.
Yeah, he's been way better than he really is on LAN. He was the lowest rated player on his team in the Copenhagen Flames series, and he's the opper. So just putting that out there.
By the way, just like something I haven't been able to bring up because this is we haven't had ELO Heavens. Rating favors oppers, so if your opper is a low-rated player, he's just bad. Yeah. There's no such thing as a support opper, generally.
What do you mean?
Rating literally
won
favors
the major
oppers.
MVP, bro.
Rating is like 80% fucking KD, and opping favors KD massively.
Yeah.
It like rating. So that's the one thing I think about, like when people talk about nerfing the op, just like a random tangent. The op it could be that the op is overpowered, but also everyone just takes fucking HLTV rating as gospel, and HLTV rating, in my opinion, heavily favors oppers.
It does.
Feel free to disagree.
It does. Even the Leadify rating I've like talked to them over it favors oppers also, because they like you're finding picks and you're just peeling off, and your next kill is you're probably gonna get a guaranteed next kill also. If you were able to get away from your first engagement, you're probably getting a second one that's favorable.
Well, to be fair, that does just favor people that kill people and don't die, which seems to be the game of CS does favor people that get
but
a
that
kill
first
and
engagement
then
is
kill.
so easy. It's so easy to just click ones, and if they didn't flash, you just get a freebie. Like it's not as much of a 50-50 duel as a rifle versus a rifle. Like I'll say that. Like there's so many more things that riflers have to think about when they're taking their little micro engagements, and it's why Yakinder is so sick to watch, because like he just knows how to take every fight. He knows how to like manipulate his peaks to just the right way. And like with an opper, bro, like you can just give that gun to anybody sometimes. And it doesn't matter if that was like a face at level 10 average face at level 10 player or device. They're both hitting that shot the same way. Whereas I cannot say, I can't say the same about some of the fights that Yakinder wins. Even when he's like holding an angle, like he's doing all these like micro stutters and like little crouch swing, backswing, like it's there's so much more thought in it.
I highly recommend anybody that's like trying to learn CS at a high level watch Yakinder, because you wouldn't necessarily think like, well, if I want to be great at CS, I want to watch someone that's like cerebral or like super experienced. Yakinder,
he is
like,
cerebral. He is.
The one thing that I've noticed, like when I look at people's crosshair placement, even like someone like Olaf just like ties it to the corner like with glue, and then people over peek it, and he's got to adjust so heavily. But Yakinder has like perfect crosshair placement for every fight. It's always exactly where their head's going to be. It's never off. It's fucking unreal. I highly recommend watching Yekindar.
Yeah, I think it's probably a habit he learned from the online era, if we're being honest, because when you do those little like back up into the forward swing into the headshot, that actually does with specifically with Peeker's advantage and the lag and all that shit. Like that is going to give you a bit of a harder shot on the opposing side. Whereas if you're just like going the same distance, you're like crouch, peeking or whatever you're doing, it's a little bit easier to attenuate that with your crosshair. But if you're making all of these like zigzag motions, but really micro in terms of actual size, it actually does make you a lot harder to hit. I don't know if it has the same effect on land, but he does seem to be bringing that over, and maybe that is confusing in a different way, perhaps when you're in studio. You never know. But yeah, Yekindar did impress me in a lot of the matches. He also did, to be fair, and maybe this is just the binary that he plays around, he did seem to throw a couple of openers to his opponents a few times. And especially I'm thinking like Inferno and Ancient in particular. But they managed to claw it back. I didn't expect them to defeat FaZe earlier, but they did manage to do it. That was like another against all odds matchup, the same way Nip barely squeaking by for Copenhagen. Do we think VP will power up in time, specifically for the arena, in their matchup against Heroic? Or what do we think of that specific quarterfinal coming up?
They'll beat Heroic. They'll beat them. It's Cadian land choker versus a team that's been to a major finals, and I know they just got battered in that major finals, but like, dude, that's 4 dudes that held they won like 2 series consecutively that they were not supposed to win, and so they think that they can do anything, and it just VP don't get a nerve.
You're talking about
games.
right now,
like,
they just won 2 series in a row recently. Or are you talking about a major? Because one of them was
at the
against
Berlin,
Renegades, surely.
I mean the Star Ladder major that they won, or not they won. I mean that they came in second place in. That was like, again, a crazy. It keeps feeling like people are like, oh, VP's boring. They're not going to win this game. Like, they're always bet against. Like, for some reason, they're always.
You can't say they're boring.
They're always seen as the underdogs, and yet I never really think that they're underdogs unless it's like a NaVi or a Gambit.
Sure.
I mean, if we look at the teams they beat Vitality very narrowly in a best of 1.
Yeah.
Then they got shit stomped by NaVi.
Yes.
Then they close game against Gambit, and then they beat fucking
They choked
Maus.
against Gambit. They choked against Gambit. They were up 14-10 in that one, and they literally just let like the only team VP chokes against is Gambit. Yeah.
Is that VP game? Is that the one with the ridiculous 30-shot whiff, or was that Entropiq that I'm remembering?
It was Kicker whiffed on Shiro as he was planting, and then Shiro won the 1v2. And if he doesn't whiff there, they win the game. They win the game, and they also don't. They even with that whiff, they got up 14-10. So it's like they should have won that one. But Gambit does something different in their heads to them. I don't know what.
The thing is, then they beat Maus.
Narrowly.
Barely.
Yes.
And then they beat FaZe, who I think, in my opinion, is only in this part of the tournament because Olaf
overperformed.
Exactly. Olaf overperformed, and they really shouldn't be. Yeah. They shouldn't really be where they were. Yeah. So, like, in terms of quality of competition, I feel like VP has to have had the weakest by. I'm trying to think of anyone that might have had weaker. I feel like they have to have some of the weakest.
It's kind of like the NIP story a little bit, where they both of those 2 teams lost to, NaVi and Gambit. They in fact had almost the exact same road in that sense. Like, they both played Maus, they both played NaVi and Gambit. Like, it's a weirdly similar route for them, losing to the heavy favorites in this tournament.
I think if any matchup, if I
who would you rate? Who would you rate higher, Copenhagen Flames or FaZe? Like, if they played each other.
Fuck, at this event, I would have to say Copenhagen Flames probably.
Yeah, this event I think Copenhagen Flames, but like
overall,
you take them out of this exact studio, and I would probably put FaZe.
I mean, if you put them in the playoffs in an arena, I would put FaZe probably also.
Yeah. I feel like FaZe over some of the teams that made it. And forget about
this matchup. In my opinion, Heroic VP is the one where, like, I think actually being in the arena might actually be the biggest difference, because I agree. I think VP will show up. They're cold-blooded.
Their nerves are better. I think.
Yeah, they'll show up, and I think, again, I just don't think Cadian's going to do all that well. I mean, I've heard the argument, like, I feel like compared to rifling, opping is very different on LAN. Not very different, but that, like, I feel like there's some oppers that just don't do well on LAN, and I think Cadian not only, I don't know if he's as far as a choker goes, but he might just not be like. When I look at his style, I feel like that doesn't necessarily translate to LAN all that well.
I think he peaks more than other oppers. Like
that's exactly what I'm thinking.
He'll battle in a way that like peaking online. I'll say this: like when I opt in certain in like the small LAN events I played, it feels like when you're holding an angle, you are a god. You're never gonna lose that fight. But if you're like, you know how online you like to crouch peek with the op sometimes and swing into things. It's just not. Yeah, like
or like actual peek then crouch.
Either. Literally moving into an angle with an op is just weaker because the riflers can just laser beam you in the face.
Yeah, online, if you peek into someone, you're fucking killing them like most of the time.
Exactly.
On LAN, you can't. You just on LAN, if you've got like a good rifler on the other side, they're just gonna kill you. You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, there's plenty of good riflers to contend with over there. We'll see how that quarterfinal matchup goes. That's probably, I actually think that might be the second hardest quarterfinal to predict. Both of the ones on the bracket are kind of tough. But before we go on to predicting the outcome of the Legend stage and deciding whether or not we think NaVi can comfortably take this major, we should talk about the major. And I'm not talking about the games of the major, but literally everything surrounding the games of the major. Obviously,
right, let me use the bathroom first.
Okay, well, Vu's gonna go ahead and mute himself, get PGL muted, and
sure.
And we can start setting the stage, right? We can start setting the stage.
How about this instead? And we'll get to what Vu thinks about that. There's this guy that like keeps going on my YouTube and your Twitch chat.
Oh, this is okay. Here we go. Petty grievances. Let's go.
No. He just wants us to talk about Liquid a little bit.
Yeah, specifically some guy who keeps spending a lot of money on an op and then getting 0.8 kills per round.
Yes. So let's just we'll address it. We'll address it because Liquid didn't make it. They underperformed. It with the 1-3. I'd say underperformed not because like it was their major to win or anything like that. Like they weren't favored at this major by any means.
Especially losing their coach. Yeah, I did a cheeky pick for them and it didn't go through.
They definitely I picked Liquid also, and I'd say that Fallen is not like the opera you probably want right now. It's just that I've heard. So I can't really say too much about the inner workings. Like I'll be a little vague with it because I heard the comms and I literally just can't. I can't tell you like say too much. But I'll say like I think that Fallen and Stewie kind of have a decent dynamic in terms of like Stewie can play better because Fallen is doing a little bit of the work for him. If it were just if you took Fallen out of this roster and you put in OC or you put in Safe, I think that Stewie's performance would drop enough that it would hurt the team. And Stewie has been performing actually pretty well for the last for the major and for the fall showdown. He did well in both of those, and I think that right now it would hurt him a lot if he had to be the full-time IGL. But as an individual, Fallen is one of the worst oppers in the major. Like he was just flat out not good. So
support opper.
There it is.
He was like he wasn't Cirque, but he was pretty bad. Yeah.
All right. Well, now we finally quashed the beef. So yeah, Vu, if you wanted to say any words about Fallen, you're free to. But this is just appeasing some guy in chat, to be honest.
I just want to like bring this back to like when Fallen got picked up.
Yep.
And we were on this with Tea Time, and Tea Time said they were going to be shit, and he like baited me into saying top 2. But I would like to. I just want to preamble. Like I just want to preface that. I said, assuming they haven't been practicing for a while, and this is their first event, I think they could be top 2 and off of this form.
Yeah.
And they had been practicing for like 5 months, so that was really just like fucking moments that precede disaster. Like they had been fucking practicing for a while, in which case I never in a million years would have made that prediction. I was just like, for a first event, I feel like this is really fucking good.
Sure.
They could be top 2. So I'm just like rolling it back to where I've like in a history and where I wasn't completely wrong. Fuck. I don't know. Even if we go back to like when Fallen first joined and Liquid was like, we're teaching him so many angles and stuff. It's like, dude, you were out of the game for like 3 months. Like, how do you forget the meta? Like this, I felt like that was like an indictment on how bad he was leading MIBR. that like he was that far out of the meta that they were like, we need to take 2 months to teach this guy the meta. Like, it kind of lost some faith in Fallen.
I think this is Fallen's last tier 1 team. I think this. I don't see.
Period, but yeah, I think you're right.
He has too much going on now. It's like, you know, I'm still a proponent of the fact that age isn't what makes people bad. It's other priorities in life. And Fallen literally is just so set with all the other projects he's working on. Like, his stream goes crazy. He has a line of products that are popular in Brazil. Like, he has it in his contract that he doesn't have to wear the same headphones as everybody else on Liquid. I don't know if you guys seen that.
Yeah.
But he wears like his red and white Fallen Gamer Academy headphones, which are just they're just Cloud 2s, but with a different skin on them. And so he literally doesn't wear what they wear because his product is like promoted, I think, by Valve in Brazil or something like crazy like that. Like, the cash flow he's getting is so much that he really doesn't have to have the same hunger that he did before to make it to where he is now. And I think that once he's gone, you know, maybe he does a Godsent level project, you know, some kind of like what I consider a tier 2-ish sort of team. But I just can't see any real tier 1 team giving him this kind of chance again.
Yeah, I think he's sort of argued himself. He's argued himself out of the top tier, and yeah, that's fine. I mean, he can sort of quietly move on and maybe raise up the next generation of Brazilian talent. There's definitely a drought there. So
I would love that. I would love that.
That could
help
be a
him out.
one.
Sometimes I think about Fallen, and I think about the Fallen going off on Semler when Semler said they just don't have the hunger anymore. And I just think of how bullshit him going off on Semler for that was when it was so obviously true.
Yeah. That's a
which
base
leads
take
into
by
how
Semler.
how much shit Semler is getting in this event.
Oh, I guess we can.
Some of the things that are going, some of the things that Semler's getting shit for in this event. Admittedly, he has made some calls that have been a little bit off that I can't necessarily defend, but I can say he got shit completely unnecessarily with that Fallen thing.
Yeah.
I am contractually obligated to keep drinking, so go ahead, Maui.
Yeah, I see that. I see that's happening for you right now. I don't really know the extent of the Semler negativity in this event. I actually think that he's gotten pretty hype for stuff. I mean, like, the dude's my colleague and I work with him pretty regularly, so I'm not gonna like. I'm not gonna grill anybody for that matter.
I'll give my full opinion on Semler. I think at the beginning of the event, it kind of felt like he was not necessarily like fully into the meta of CS. He made a few comments that were like borderline. They weren't like outright wrong, like Reddit is going off that he's like a fucking idiot. They weren't outright wrong, but there was like a couple ones like giving kills to an MP9, if you saw that one, where like I thought it was kind of like, I could see how someone's like, dude, what are you talking about? I can also see how that is like the vector to input this idea that you want to give kills to an MP9 instead of having the opper pick it up, and he's just gone about it in a different way. Since Legends, I've enjoyed everything I've seen from Semler. I don't think he said anything that's like I even really moderately disagree with, and I think he's brought in like a different style. Like, I think it might have taken him a little bit of time to like kind of get that style like correct and kind of like tone it correctly. But I think since Legends, I've really fucking enjoyed literally every casting duo at this event. I've really enjoyed. There's like no problem with any of them, but the problem is Reddit's got this idea that Semler's shit in their mind, and so they're just going to keep making posts about it, even though like I think there was some arguable things at the start. I think he's really on point right now.
I think every casting duo. I'll be real about this. I think every casting duo on day one was pretty boring, with the exception of Sponge Machine. I think brought it on day one. I think they were the only one that I pretty much watched. I watched nearly everything on the first couple days, and I think that Sponge Machine had no like ramp up time. They were like making games good immediately. And then other groups, like, this is the first time DDK has done a game or a CS match in probably a year or something. It's been a while for him.
It's since Summit, so earlier this year. It was like at least 6 or 8 months or something.
Okay, so yeah, he did like CS Summit 8 or something, yeah. Or no, he didn't even do 8. He did 7. Yeah. So he did
the
that.
one with like meme production levels, basically. If you guys can remember that one, that's like somehow a tier below this PGL one. We'll get.
I think VP won that. VP won that one. Yeah.
You're the only one who remembers. Sorry, man.
So he So like DDK's been out of it, so I think like his meta, like DDK was such a great like color to James's play-by-play, and even because they could switch also seamlessly at any given time, and then so but DDK did provide more like heavy like deep analysis and stuff like that, and it was kind of clear to me that he was out of it because when one team was up like 7-1 or 8-1 on Ancient on the T side, James asked him like, oh Dan, do you think this one has gotten out of hand? And James or DDK's like, it's a little early to tell, and it's like Ancient is the most CT sided map. Like it's out of hand for sure. But the thing is that they all got better. Like at this point at this stage of the event, I enjoy every casting duo I am hearing, and that is no exaggeration. Like there's no duo right now that I'm hearing that I am disappointed by at all. Like I think everybody has a good understanding of the game, where players' heads are at. They all bring their different strengths, and I think that it's seriously the variety of casters as it's just constantly rotating makes this whole event a lot more exciting for me, because I'm like, dude, I'm barely awake for some of these matches, and yet I'm never like, oh, I'm gonna turn it off because it's XYZ caster. That's simply not happening. That's
some of trying to like. I think PGL did a really good fucking job hiring of the casters, because there's things that I didn't realize that I missed. Like DDK's kind of like, when there's a big moment, his like yelling in the background, like the nostalgic yelling in the background. Like I didn't realize I missed that. But I fucking missed it. And like when I was watching, I think they casted the second series today. I don't know. I watched all the series today. I was like, fuck, I missed this. I missed DDK, man. I missed this casting. Same thing with a lot of Sadakist casting. Like I didn't realize I missed this, but I absolutely missed it. And it's like, it's making me want to watch all the games, because it's something I haven't seen in a bit.
As the least established, and thus one with most to lose, arguably, member of talent on this broadcast, I would like to say,
wait,
no. Well, I've got my whole life ahead of me, bro. You don't know.
Okay, sure. Yeah, go on.
I would like to say,
or you've already ruined your career already.
Most likely, yeah. It's just they never pay you, bro. They never pay you. They fucking they fix the match to my cigarette, and that's it, right? So I do have to say, PGL had a rock star cast when this was announced, right? There's a huge outcry of support for like some of the most nostalgic names. There was some fair criticism that maybe there could have been some of the people that carried the online era to this point, and then they could have gotten some stuff. I heard a point, and unfortunately I can't actually remember who said this, but there was a point that gave me some pause about the talent, which was that maybe if you think about like Launders and Scrawny and Harry and Hugo, these are the casting duos that have done the online era, but also are specifically more in form and don't have to worry about like, you know, they would be more than happy to be a part of the major for the early stage, the contender stage and the legend stage, and then they can sort of roll out the red carpet for the more storied casting duos for something like the actual arena games, right? And that was a point that I don't really have a good counter argument to. I mean, people are saying that it's
I don't know if there is much of a counter argument. I mean, like, this feels like
I'm not talking about it from a position of personal bias, right? I'm not saying like, these casters are just better. It's more like
it almost feels like sports. You know how like in sports, like it used to be that you give like the aging superstar like a farewell contract, but then they kind of like stopped doing that recently. But you know, it's been like you kind of give them their farewell contract, and the new guys, they know that when they're older, they're going to get that farewell contract. They just got to wait a couple of years. That almost feels like what this was. It was kind of like bringing back the old guard, even though there is very logical arguments for bringing in the online era guys.
Yeah,
I don't think there's I don't think there's an argument for it or against it. I think it's just kind of different.
What's weird about like Harry and Hugh? So I'd say Launders and Scrawny did come into the public's eye more so during the online era, but Harry and Hugo worked the last major. So I don't even like they're not seen as the old guard. Yeah, they're definitely not the old guard. They're definitely like the younger
perhaps more
generation.
Established? Is that your angle?
Yeah, so they wanted like that vintage feel of all the voices and everything, and I think people are loving it. But with Harry Hugo, I mean, I am just to be honest, like with everybody, I'm closer with Launders and Scrawny. So like in a biased standpoint, I would want them. I know them better, and I would probably like really rate them highly. But if we're just like doing who has the experience, like Harry and Hugo have already actually done a major. So yeah, I think that's even more concerning thing that PGL went this like hardcore old guys club. The only guy working this event under 30 is Machine. So like it's all old dudes that are at this.
Fuck's sake!
I didn't know Blood
I
was
had
that
not
old,
heard
bro.
that
Looks
before.
pretty good. Looks pretty good.
I don't think there's a single person. I guess if you count Freya, you got 2.
Yeah, sure.
But everybody else is 30 or over.
So
yeah, I mean that is a little bit concerning, I guess. If you think, I mean, it would fucking suck if CS were to die tomorrow, and it's just like, well, we brought back the old dudes that hadn't done it in a while, even though they're great, but we kind of like almost like scammed the new generation out of like a major that they probably, in theory, certainly could have been hired for. That would fucking suck. As long as CS doesn't die tomorrow, then in theory, Launders and Scrawny get the same treatment. You know, Harry and Hugo get the same treatment at some point, right? The problem is that it's not. Unfortunately, esports is time flies real quick.
I'll stage my point like this: if we got, the Sadokist Moses duo and the James Bardolph DDK duo on the Legend stage, or the what is this called now?
Challengers,
stage? The playoffs.
The playoffs,
specifically
Champion
in the arena.
Stage.
Yeah, those guys would mesh super well. That's almost their home turf. And if you're going to go by in terms of like, so we rank teams partly by experience, but also partly by run of form and how hot they are right now. If you're going to rank duos that way, Machine and Sponge have been mainstays, and all the other guys, Anders and Semmler have obviously been casting together somewhat recently, and then you obviously have the online era dudes, right? So like, that's more my point, is that if we had those guys to carry us through the levels where it was a remote broadcast for all intents and purposes because they weren't on site with the players, that almost feels like you're getting the members of talent, the duos that are more hot right now, can carry you through a broadcast, can make sure that it's polished and good, and have their own calling cards, right? Obviously, Harry and Hugo are the funny guys, and then I guess Launders and Scardies are also funny, but in a very different way. And then they all have their own sort of tricks that they can pull out. And then we get to the champion stage, the playoffs, and you're starting to talk about the old guard, as it were. But it really feels like a real good send off. And I understand maybe from both a financial standpoint of paying multiple people day rates that maybe are more negotiable, and then obviously like the talent themselves probably just want to cast more games at the major. Totally understandable. I understand why PGL took this angle. I just feel like there was a way to recognize that this isn't just a major, that this is the first major in 2 years, and that as much as we want to have that vintage feel, there's also an element of more recent history that could have been acknowledged that I think maybe they missed out on.
Just one comment is that the Challenger stage used to be the minor, right?
Yes.
Isn't that where
it was the major offline stage, qualifier? Major offline qualifier. It was major LAN qualifier.
Okay, so the minor, so Challenger would be after the minor, like.
Yes, the minors fed into the major qualifier.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Okay. Trying to think of how this works, because I was just thinking, well, if the Challenger stage used to essentially be the offline minor, right?
Or the yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess it wasn't part of the major, right? That would be the perfect place to put it.
It wasn't part of the major.
Yeah, that would be the perfect place to put in other people, and then you have your real talent, I guess.
Sure.
Come in the legend stage.
They used to kind of do that. The major offline qualifier had different, and the minors had different talent than the major itself. That was the thing before. Yeah.
So if we step aside from the hiring process, obviously there were some really funny comments, and I say funny because I don't take them seriously at all. That there's only one person who wasn't white, which is obviously just factually incorrect. That was a cool guy, Nip, cool Nip tweet. We gotta just reference it and move on because obviously we're coming up on time. But I do want to mention just that
that was a really rough comment. That was a really rough comment to have made.
Banger tweet.
I mean, oh fuck's sake.
I will also say, though, that this tournament, the problems therein, specifically regarding the production, that have nothing to do with really the casters.
They hired Mahone for diversity, though. I gotta say.
Yeah.
It's just...
That's how it is.
That's how NIP hired Mahone.
I want to say that day one, you can't blame PGL completely because Valve did update the client 2 hours before day one started, which is a classic Valve move. We love that. So
wasn't it like, they updated? Because I thought it was like someone said
game
something
state
about
integration.
There being a literal LAN client or something that like caused problems. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, well, something updated somewhere down the line, whether it was the main game or it was the tournament client, and it was coming from Valve and not PGL, and then thusly all of the GSI, like the game state integration stuff broke, where that's why for a while, like they didn't have a HUD, and then for a while the radar was 5 FPS, and they were basically just triaging and trying to get like as much as they could up. It's also, as far as I know, it might have even been why there were no player cams, even though like on the Chinese stream, for example, they were, because they were using a different HUD and it was a different broadcast team entirely and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of confusion coming out, and that really does. That's a catastrophe on a level that doesn't actually normally come even in day one of a tournament like this, where it doesn't like that. That feels very much not major like, which really sucks for this specific major for the reasons I just outlined earlier. That this is the first one in 2 years. Like,
there's been a lot of majors that have started with really bad day one delays, like hours. I think the Face It London one had a 2-hour delay for one of the games. Like, it's never great for that first day, but I think that, and we definitely we give PGL a pass, but there are still issues today that are just like, why is there a black screen? Why is there a fully white screen on the stream for like 3 seconds in the middle of a round? Did we just get flashed? Like, what's going on here? No, there's some whack shit that's going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the first day people were going off on PGL, and I was like, dude, calm the fuck down. Like, this is the first day. You're fine. Like, you really like, why does any fucking TO want to come into CSGO if this is how you guys are going to be just fucking cunts about it? Like, this is just it's nothing. Actually, the worst part about the first day for me, ironically, was that it wasn't so bad that it was unwatchable. So I kept watching, when a lot of the time, the first day of an event, I'm just like, yep, not watchable. I'll come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, so I was still watching, so I was like getting more and more annoyed because there was like FPS problems or whatever.
Or audio issues on the second stream.
Now the problems continuing are worthy of like being a little bit annoyed about, I suppose.
Yeah.
The constant, like, there's fucking constant Reddit threads about it, and it's these people are fucking crazy too. But yeah, I mean, I just pray it gets fixed for the like the LAN. Since I'm gonna be there, as long as that's on point, then that's what really matters, Yeah. I feel like, look, it's been problematic. I don't feel like it's been. The thing is, I'm trying to like. Sometimes I try and get in the mind of someone that's watching casually, which is the people that you really want to appeal to as the major. The veteran viewership, I'm gonna watch regardless. It's gonna be annoying to me, but I'm gonna watch no matter what. What does a new viewer think? I don't feel like it's been so bad that new viewers aren't going to be interested. And I think that like this little fucking drone thing they've got is actually like really cool, that like would be kind of cool for new viewers. Yeah. There's some stuff they've done that I think has been like stuff that would attract new viewers. And even though the issues will annoy older viewers, I don't think that we really matter that much, to be honest. So I feel like it's been blown out of proportion a little bit from that regard, because the people that talk about it are the people that watch every game regardless.
Especially on Reddit or something like that. Yeah.
But it's obviously it's not been good. And I just want to say those massive borders around the webcams, really not loving those. Like,
can trim them down.
And the webcams are like super high up. So it's like looking right. But I mean, every event seems to have that fucking problem, to be honest. So it's not even.
I do feel like there's a big deal going on where like, obviously, Maui, you were talking earlier about the casters themselves coming into their own level of form. In some ways, the teams have come into their form. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's been error corrections every single day, and sometimes in the middle of the day, where an issue will be pointed out and complained about, be it on Reddit, Twitter, wherever, maybe some internal thing, and then it does eventually get addressed in some way. Whether it's a net upgrade is maybe up for more debate, but for the most part, it's usually been pretty good. My question is, like, at what point do we say that it's acceptable to start at what point is the acceptable expectation to be to have an issue-free day? Like, in terms of, by defining an issue, I don't mean like an occasional like futz around with an observer or something, but it's more like, here's the like the black screen that you pointed out, or like where the whole stream gets flashbanged for 3 seconds and they don't know what to do, or the GoTV lagging out, or stuff like this. Like, at what point? I surely we've passed this point right now. Like, by now, this should not have, these kinds of critical things that are actually blocking the viewer's ability to see what's going on. Pretty big, right?
When the games are good enough that they get 70,000 plus views, there better be no damn problems, because like it's so like that's such a that's how I would characterize it. That I think the first couple days of the challengers was getting between 50K, 60K, almost 70K viewers, if not. And I think that that's a number where there's enough people there that, and Vu's right to think about the casual fans that that guy might not turn in again. That guy might tune out because there's a technical issue here, and he's like, man, I tried watching a little bit of Counter-Strike, but you know, it's really tough for me to want to get into soccer. Okay, I'll just say that. Like, it's really hard. Like, I've tried a few times.
Football.
Sure, because you're in Europe, you'll say that now.
But someone corrected me and yelled at me for saying soccer. At a bar, I just said soccer, and they were mad as fuck.
They're gonna be frustrated, right? Yeah. So it takes me like, if there's something really cool with a soccer game, like I've watched the FA Cup before, or just like, you know, World Cup games, like those are fine. Like I can handle some of those here and there, especially when it's single limb. But like, it's hard. Like, I've never watched enough that I've been like, I'm gonna invest a lot of time into soccer now because of what I just watched, and that's kind of what I'm getting from the PGL major. That I'm not like seeing any side content that has me interested enough that I'm gonna like. What keeps people interested is like personal interest, or like human interest stories.
Yes.
And I think those player profiles that were at the Star Ladder major and a couple prior majors were exceptional in that, oh my god, I learned about this guy, I know his story, I am now a fan of his. And I'm just like, what do these people think that are watching Infant for the first time? They just think, that's a cool game, you know, I kind of like that, but I don't know who these people are, I don't care about them, I don't even know what country they're from, other than a little flag that's there. Like, I have no reason to root for any of this, but they needed shoulder content. For the first major in 2 years, how did you not prepare shoulder content? Flashpoint prepared shoulder content. Like, you knew who were coming into this tournament and the very likely favorites. Like, there's a case like, sure, at the until the last RMR, you didn't know, and only NaVi was guaranteed, I think, at the last RMR. But then film some NaVi content. You know, get someone out there and do something, because like, why does a casual person watch? To see usually the best player ever. So like, a NaVi game should have this side content piece that's like, Simple is the greatest, this is his coming of age story, how he had to go to America, how he was an outcast of the CIS scene. There's a million angles you can take on it, and a casual viewer doesn't know any of them, or as to the journey of this player, who's the best now in the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point, where, you know, you look at something like, even the Kerrigan, like, he wasn't like all the other gamers.
Yeah, he had a girlfriend. He always had a girlfriend.
He was always the first to get the girls.
Yeah.
He was slaying coochie.
Right? Like, that actually does, like, for a new viewer, that's like humanizes the players that are otherwise like, who the fuck is this guy? And the casters are referencing like a storyline as if I know what that storyline is. Like, that actually does humanize the players and gets newer fans interested and invested in the outcome. I've definitely seen people talk about watching shoulder content and being like, wow, I want this guy to win because of his story. I can't remember whose story it was that I'm thinking about. Maybe like Frozen, or I don't know, someone like lost their dad or something. And then there was like a lot of people I saw talk about like, I want this guy to win this event. I'm watching for him to win. Giving people someone to root for is how you get them to come back. And fuck, it is shit that's not there. I feel like the deaths have been really good, the casts have been really good, but they are absolutely missing out on that, and that's unfortunate. I mean, the best they've had Banks doing like the those like breakfast with things. I'm not sure if that's all they had planned, or because Banks had his unfortunate personal situation that they're doing less of that. That could just be kind of out of their hands. But I mean, even then, they could have more than just that, right? They could have a piece on NaVi, or like actual background pieces, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is a very dark Banks-shaped cloud hanging over the whole subject of shoulder content. And I mean, I've said this privately, I think his choice to come back, while in some ways is, I would say, like, you know, you can commend him for it, the post-event depression is going to hit that guy like a motherfucker. And it's not necessarily our place to go talk in super depth on this, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think at this point, they think about it and say, like, maybe we do find somebody else to potentially take over the role. I guess the main issue is maybe nobody else from the talent team is even in Stockholm.
Well, I think
they probably only on contract.
They needed to do stuff beforehand, probably. Yes. They needed to set stuff up beforehand, right?
Yeah, like Flashpoint sent people, when they knew the teams, they sent people to Latvia, to other countries to film stuff. And that's how they did the player profiles for other majors too. And I get that there's COVID restrictions for flying certain places, but it's still actually incredibly doable. And in fact, they did it for Flashpoint 2 in the midst of the pandemic, and it was worse back then. It was literally just worse. So there's frankly no excuse anymore to not have it. I don't really care that PGL was doing the TI right before it. If that's like, oh, they were busy with that, it's like, well, then don't do the CSGO major. Get somebody else who can dedicate more time and resources to it. Because, yeah, it's just like, the viewership is insane for this event. Like,
it's major level viewership, yeah.
It's the best viewership we've had in 2 years. But we're not giving people what is, in my opinion, like what has been deemed the best product out there. And you could say, and you could pick your favorite TO for who gives the best product, but this is just simply not it. It's not what we're seeing now.
I think especially considering they had, for example, like almost 2 weeks with Copenhagen Flames since they made it so deep. They had obviously a week with, somebody pointed it out in chat, they have a week in the challenger stage or contender stage where the Legends teams that had already qualified, they had a week when everybody was there as well. So I'm sure that was in the plans. Obviously Heroic, there was some shoulder content with them, VP as well. So you saw some of it come to fruition, and I feel like there has to be a contingency, even for the sake of, like, say nothing bad goes on and Bank stays for the whole event. Surely even for some variety as well.
Yeah.
Just have a second guy on content. And then the unfortunate situation is at least you have somebody else doing it. And it's just a little bit rough in that sense, right?
The thing is, like, it kind of does seem like PGL is cutting his... not, I don't know. I guess cutting corners might be the actual way to put it, with talent not on... Talent isn't going to be there. But, you know, the community backlash about it, and then talent's there. Maybe there's something behind the scenes, like, but it really does seem like it was too costly. Dude, maybe something came up, so it was too costly. And then it was like, well, community's mad enough about it, we'll do it. Then B-stream games are going to be in practice rooms. Then they're not, because there's enough community. It kind of just seems like they thought they could kind of cut this corner. And I guess technically they could cut this corner, but I hate to say it, but that's one of the things that, like, a developer run ecosystem, they don't cut those corners because they know they need to grow the game, not just make as much money off of an event as possible. Which seems like, you know, is more likely with a TO than a developer, right?
This is me putting on the conspiracy hat, which I rarely do, but this major kind of hits me in a way that's just like, PGL at one point realized that they weren't going to be able to deliver on a lot of kind of these demands or these kind of desires we have for side content and you know, shoulder stuff and even just put together even the best product. So the way that, and this is a conspiracy obviously, but it's just like, and so the way they're getting around this is by putting out a product they know is less than acceptable to start, and it's just like the improvements are giving everybody, like, everybody's giving PGL these like little pats on the back that's like, good, yes, things are getting better, like, great, they're listening, etc., etc. But it's like, what if they honestly just had most of these ideas to start and were like, let's just see if we can cut the corner, and we know we can fix these things, but let's just put it out there that it's put out this kind of subpar product so that the community will be like more understanding. Because if they just gave the product that they have today on day one, it would have been pretty good and we would have been pretty excited about it and like happy with it. But then people would have started nitpicking on these things that they're frankly never gonna do. Like, then we would start actually being like, where's the shoulder content though? Like, every tournament has shoulder content now, and they just know they're not gonna come up with that.
It's not an unreasonable conspiracy.
It isn't unreasonable, and I think what might be considered unreasonable is that we're still asking some of these questions going into the arena. Hopefully production is entirely on site and not remote. That is a big concern, I would say. But I also think that, you know, obviously if talent's going there, then presumably production's flying out too. And hopefully they can set everything up in a day. I mean, unfortunately, you almost have to reset expectations and say that the arena games are day one of an event, because it's a completely different logistical challenge. Hopefully they can pass through that without any of the same woes they had earlier in the tournament. And we can just focus on the games themselves, which is something we can be fairly confident in will deliver. If all else fails and the production doesn't actually increase massively from this point onward, we can at least say we're going to get some pretty good games, I think, going into the
I feel like the games have been
incredible.
about as good as you can get.
Yeah.
You know,
Dude,
so far this
incredible
event,
games.
like just watching the last matchup, NIP versus Copenhagen Flames, man. That game couldn't have gotten any more intense.
This is the first time I've ever started yelling like ridiculously for rounds on end watching a CS game.
Yeah,
that
and I do,
yeah, so.
I do think Sadokist and Moses, I think, were literally my two favorite casters on their own. So seeing them in a duo, fucking love it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of it could be better. You're right. This is mediocre production, but it's good enough that me already loving the game.
Yeah,
it's fucking great.
For the hardcore fans, this is kind of in a way all we need.
Yeah,
but
we can just rely on the games themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the future of CS a little bit when I make these claims or these desires, because I want someone that's tuning in for the first time, seeing it on Twitch with 200,000 viewers, to be like, "Oh, what's going on here? Oh, I'm gonna become a fan of this now," because I already know I'm a fan. And I think we're all fans here already, and most people listening to this are fans.
Most people. There are some people who lost some bets and are DMing ropz right now, and they can hopefully find some relief somewhere else. No, just saying.
Yeah.
No, that's an old quote. There's somebody said Pick'em's fucked. I'm DMing twists right now. some good ones. All right, so let's also talk a bit about some of the stuff that's going to be happening after the major, because we did headline a couple of the playoff matches. First of all, do we think NaVi actually takes this? That's the question I have for you. The last little major talk, then we'll get to some of the addendums that'll happen after the fact. We'll blitz through those.
Yes, I think NaVi takes this.
Okay. They do have a pretty tough run, theoretically, assuming they have to play Gambit in semis, and then G2 or NIP or something like that in the finals could be a pretty big deal. What do you think, Alex?
I would say that NaVi actually have one of the hardest roads to the grand final. I wish instead of Vitality or NIP or G2 in that first round to make it even tougher, but I think this is gonna test them. But if somebody right now gave me 50-50 odds for NaVi being the champion, I would take those odds. So that's like, if you could just 1-to-1, I would take it. I think they really are gonna do it.
If they get to the final, they should probably win the final.
So their stumbling block has to come earlier, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, Vitality is always somewhat scary if Zai was online. I would say Gambit is their scariest opposition, assuming Gambit gets through, you know?
Yes. That's
which
what I think. Which
is going to destroy some pick'ems. Like, I would like to see the stats like 80% not got diamond coin because picked NaVi over Gambit. Like, that's exactly what it would be.
That would destroy pick'ems, basically.
What's actually funny, though, is if Gambit makes the grand final, like, Gambit has the best chance to beat NaVi of any of the teams left, but I don't actually think that if they even beat NaVi, like, they're a shoo-in for winning it all. So I think if Gambit do beat NaVi, it's not even like somebody that's just a staunch Gambit supporter is going to get a diamond coin. I think they could lose to any of the 4 teams on the other side, legitimately.
That's a bold statement, considering all of the caliber of opposition they have.
I would say they'd be favored in the final, but I agree that they could definitely lose.
Yeah. That is
favored,
fair.
but they could lose to Heroic. They could definitely lose to VP, just based off the domestic part there.
Yep.
G2, like, they look weirdly hot right now. NIP probably the biggest favorite for Gambit. Like, Gambit would probably take them down easiest, but I think it's really tough to call for that if Gambit makes the grand final.
I guess I do almost like their odds more to get to the final than any team besides NaVi, perhaps. Like, they do have a weird chance against NaVi themselves. The other thing, though, that we have to mention here at this point, right, is that the playoffs are going to undergo a certain way. Like, could FURIA realistically be a stumbling block in the opening matchup, or are they just like a dead team walking? Is top 8 the farthest they go? Like,
they're not dead. They're not a dead team. They're not a dead team walking. That's harsh.
That's G2. We'll talk about them in a sec. But
yeah, but they're definitely no. Gambit's gonna beat them.
I want to say yes because FURIA as a team is like, they can, in theory, they can upset everyone. But
they are energized by arenas, surely.
And like, currently, this FURIA, I don't think have much of a chance at all. It's just, I'm thinking, like, when I think FURIA, I'm thinking like FURIA that upset Astralis out of their fucking 30 map win streak on Nuke, you know, with Henny, and they were like beastly FURIA coming out of nowhere.
Right.
It's not the same FURIA right now.
I think on paper the Gambit FURIA is the most lopsided of any of these openers. It's just that, like I said, that there's going to be a little bit of a LAN buff for a couple of these teams, and FURIA should be one of them theoretically, because 4 of their guys have been pretty deep at a handful of LAN events, and they didn't change their roster. I mean, they obviously lost Henny, but like they haven't been changing it much lately. It's just been like, it's been Drop for Honda, which is literally the same thing but just better. You know, Drop's just better than Honda. So that's that.
Well, I don't think anybody will really disagree with that, huh? So besides maybe Honda's Deagle in 2 rounds, and that's it. That's all I got.
Hey, Honda got 2 aces in his first game, I think it was,
and a third in the next map.
Unbelievable. Third in the next map.
Unbelievable performance.
One of them was an MP9 anti-eco one though. Like just saying, like it's 3, but
by the way, it seems like the return of the eco Cobras, because it seems like full ecos are coming out a lot this event, and I'm seeing a lot of people farm some fucking Glock kills or P250 no armor kills, and it's like, and I saw some casters are still mentioning it, and people as well are just mentioning it like, you know, you talk about anti-ecos as if they're not important. They are important. But it seems like Eco Cobra is like out in full force with
ecos are easier.
Full ecos, yeah.
You're not as scared of Deagle body shots. Just not. You're gonna get away with 98 with 10 HP left as opposed to 0.
And the Tech 9 is still kind of busto, but the problem is you need utility for the Tech 9 to be like that great. Busto. It's kind of busto.
He learned that call out from Europe as well.
It's like the thing is, I've said busto for a long time. This is old school Canadian in me. But like busto. for a Tech 9, I think you need like a hit. You need like a strat. Like you need like a fast B hit on Mirage, where like you just like get zoomed with the fucking Tech 9 from across the universe, like never stop, dink you in the head.
Yeah.
Right. It's a little bit different than a Deagle, where you can just like walk out and at any moment you're fucked. And also, if you fight them close range, you're fucked. Dude, like that was so bullshit. I can't believe that existed.
I think the Deagle nerf has been one of Valve's best changes in the last, I don't know, year. I'd say year.
Now they just need to make 10 more good ones and we'll be even.
They need to nerf CT side. They need to nerf CT side immediately.
I think just like your tweet earlier, like maybe 2 days ago or something, when you said swap the prices of the M4s makes perfect sense.
I think that's like a likely change. That's a Valve change, but like
the thing with that take is that it's like Valve, like you're saying, Pronogo, you know, Valve made one good change and like 10 bad ones. That's with Vu tweets. You get one good tweet and like 10 bad ones.
There it is.
Bro, what the fuck?
Dude, that's good banter, dude. I was not expecting that. You had me totally hook, line, and sinker on that one. I had no idea you were gonna pull that.
Bro, I've never missed on Twitter a single time.
Except when you do.
Except for when I intentionally missed to fuck with people.
I will say,
like when I put who I thought was gonna win the next day, and I just put random teams straight down the board.
Just flip a coin. Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about post-major stuff. So something that's on a lot of people's mind, this will be our last topic before we close, is a lot of people are talking about roster moves. I mentioned earlier G2 dead team. They seem likely to just completely blow this roster up. I think even if they do win the major, which is going to be pretty sad, because if we think about the last time that non-Astralis won a major, it was obviously Cloud9, and that
just fluky.
I mean, and 3 months later, it was a complete different. I mean, the immortal Thorin quote is Stewie2K looks to his teammates and goes, "You guys are so great. I'm going to stay at least 3 months." After winning the major. So that's the last thing that we had. And that, I think, sucked the wind out of a lot of the fans' sails long term. If we're talking about long-term Counter-Strike, a team like G2, or maybe even Heroic to that extent, like a team that might actually blow their whole roster up, or at least swap out a couple of key parts, is not going to be your favorite team if you're looking at, like, obviously, if something happens, it's a great game, Major's going to go down in history, obviously. But at the same time, if you're like thinking long-term history, like this NaVi roster seems like they're not going to swap any players out for a while. They would
good.
they would be a great team. They're one of the few teams that don't have to swap a player, right? So that's like one of those things that people are thinking about. We can get to G2 if you guys want. That was mostly the stepping stone to this next topic, which is Complexity finally transfer listed players that Mauisnake, you and I have insider info on this. So we already knew this stuff was coming, but took a couple of days for Complexity to finally list that one. What do we actually make of the fact that they're just blowing up their whole roster? Is it about time? Is it just one more disappointment after another for this team? Are they, who do they even have on lock at this point? Is it actually just Alu and and like people on loan basically?
Yeah, the only contract they have is Coldzera for a
like
short term, which is going to it's like a month, maybe a month more, month and a half or something, like end of December, I think it is. So they would probably have to build a team again from scratch, and if they don't just pick a team up. So I think that if Jason Lake wants a roster, there's a couple right now that probably don't have the craziest buyouts. And if I just had to use any of the knowledge I had to pick some of those teams in the top 15, 20, probably Heroic is one. They're just not a huge org. You got Copenhagen Flames, that's another. I would be shocked if ENCE has a lot, but the thing about ENCE is that they have a partner spot with ESL, so I wouldn't really think they just give that up, because this team looks like it's on the up and up, so it has to be a pretty high price. Copenhagen Flames has the most reason to sell, because they have really nothing. They have no blast spot, they have no ESL spot, they're not part of the Louvre agreement, and that's just, I mean, their contracts going into that team, I'm pretty sure were probably like reasonable buyouts. Like,
aren't they always just? Haven't they always been just like a feeder team?
They are a feeder
team. Sell their roster and get another one.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
it's
possible.
Like the anti Mad Lion or the anti any team that Hunden was on before he was just a complete fucking asshole, basically. That's like
Entropiq is there actually if they want to go the CIS direction, but I have a strong feeling Jason wants a team he can talk to in English.
Wasn't there a rumor about them searching CIS teams?
There might have been.
I thought there was a rumor about them looking into
the rumor is from
teams.
Overdrive, bro.
Overdrive?
You gotta take that.
I thought Overdrive said they were shopping a little bit.
Yeah. They probably have inquiries. I think it makes total sense. The other thing to remember about Complexity, though, is that I mean, specifically when you're talking about Entropiq, like if you're looking at this event as an analyst, Entropiq looked like they look like a longer term project than Copenhagen Flames. They actually look like a team that's going to move way farther in, I think. Like, because Copenhagen Flames, they could get picked apart, whereas it's not really the same. I don't think that's likely for
if you're going CIS, I don't see why you wouldn't just go with most of Spirit's roster, or at least several of Spirit's roster and some other people, you know?
Yeah, I guess you could mix and match between those. Yeah, that's fair.
I love Haka's point about Copenhagen Flames though in the chat. Did you guys see it?
Yeah, literally sold Hooksy before. Shout out Haka. What's up, homie?
Yeah, Copenhagen Flames. I've literally sold Hooksy before.
Nice. I don't know why it would be the Complexity would completely implode the. I feel like they could have kept something. Like it would be weird for them to completely implode their roster and then just pick up another European team.
That is really weird.
Weird to me.
Yeah,
I thought it made sense if they were going NA, or if they were. I mean, it would be weird to go CIS, but I at least I guess if you think CIS is the future, sure. But like, it would make a lot of sense if you're like implode the roster, go full NA or something like that, right? But it's just so weird to implode the roster and then go EU again, because I don't know. It just
I'm not. So this is kind of moving it off a little bit, but I would want to just see some of these players go to EG. Just change up EG a lot. There's a handful of pieces now that you can pick from, and I think that there's still enough of a core in terms of drive and skill on EG that they could be something. And like Richard and Thorin have been like really pushing this narrative that EG are on the way out, and maybe they do have some insider information, but if we're going off of what anything EG have said, they are constantly like, guys, we are really trying, like we're really trying to stay in this. And I'm kind of in between. I'm kind of in between both of those. I can't believe either one completely, Richard or the EG social media guy. So
it's just like it seems to be fully confirmed that EG was shopping the roster. That everyone seems to be saying that. Immediately after that came out, no, we never tried to do that. from their CEO immediately after. No, we never tried to do that.
That's what makes me suspicious. If you're
that's why I lose all faith in anything they have to say following that. That like, are they staying in the scene? Well, I don't really have any faith in anything that you might want to put out there because you've just blatantly lied outright. But I mean, I don't know.
If there's, I'll just say, if there's going to be an EG rebuild, take S-Attack, take Blame F, take somebody, take even JKS, you know, take somebody to just provide some sort of like veteran figure that is still strong enough in terms of individual ability. Like, don't give me like some shitty IGL something like that. Give me someone that like can pack a punch and can lead by example a little bit.
Wait, you know, now that I think about it, Extremum probably picks up Spirit, which then obviously leaves the X-Extremum roster to go wherever they want. Like, that's another lineup that has some pieces you can take.
Oh my god. Oh, if you got Azure for EG, if you got Bentet, Azure, like any combination of S-Attack, Blame F, Azure, JKS, any of those pieces to EG, I'd be really happy. Like, honestly. Like, just please, something. Anything. Please kick somebody. Just cut it.
I mean, it kind of, dude.
Kick 3 people. I don't care.
It feels like something's up there other than EG being bad. Like, surely someone on the team has to have like wanted to replace people and they weren't allowed or something, and so they're like fucking checked out or like something like that. Like, the team cannot possibly be this dog shit with the skill that they have without something else being around, without something else being the case. And like, I can't speculate on who it was. The one thing is almost a tangent that the Stanislaw clutch where he fakes the bomb. He looked like he looked like I know that expression. That is like, I want to fucking die right now. Like, I want to curl up in a ball and fucking die. Like, he looked like he was dead inside entirely. Holy fuck, that is depressing. Oh, like, just to cap off, like, they're gonna lose this event. It looks like, you know, that's the type of expression where it's like, I didn't even want to play this event, and then I did this. Like, fuck's sake.
Could be a big time to rebuild for NA in general. The trouble is there's that looming specter of Valorant where you have to wonder, like, okay, like, how many of these players stay in CS in the first place? And I don't know. I did badmouth the EG players and told them the GG go next, and by next I mean Valorant. But this still is like, it's a bit rough to say at this point. It kind of hurts now that I said that. Now I'm looking at this like, oh wait, actually these players will do that. That's not an empty threat. Unfortunate. Like, I don't know.
It's one of those teams where I just feel like it could very well be that most of the team wants to play, and they just know they can't win with this roster, and the org's not letting them cut the player they need to cut or something. And then if they could be totally reinvigorated. So I without any extra knowledge, it's hard to say exactly what happened, but they definitely need at least one change, minimum one change.
Give me two, and then I'm happy. I don't think if the only single change that can happen and me believe in it is Stanislaw, but I think it has to be one more than that. You need to like inject new lifeblood.
Would be the most obvious changes in my mind.
I don't know what oppers are on the market right now, but that is by the way, free. Okay, well, I don't know.
He's not on the market, but he's like
Extrasol did just complete a rebuild with Floppy. They swapped out. So
yeah. I mean, I would want to take Safe. I think he speaks English, so I would.
If that's the case, 100% a shout. By the way, free content for anybody listening. Just find a list of all of the free agents, and then pick one of them and be like, "Here are the teams he could join," and then do that for like every player in the free agency list. There you go.
And give me if they can speak English too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because I think there's some player. Like, does SDY speak English? Like, it's such a random person.
He seems to speak. From the interviews I've seen him on, he seems to speak pretty solid English. Yeah,
I think most people that play FPL regularly, like Mir, also speak English. So, because like, how else are they gonna play?
I haven't seen Mir in an interview. I know SDY has done a good amount of interviews.
And these players play FPL too, presumably. So
yeah, Magic speaks English. I thought Mir did. Oh, Dexter actually definitely does. I've done an interview with him. Oh my god, if they got Dexter, yes.
That would be a solid
give me
offer. A solid op
Give me
candidate.
that.
Yeah, Try out of 9Z. Try is fucking nutty, by the way.
The thing
Shout
about
out Yumi.
Dexter that's good is that Dexter literally doesn't go outside. He does not care if he is in the Midwest or in some just absolute bumfuck area, because the dude DMs for like 100 hours a week. Like, he literally is like, people have always talked about this, and even when we talked about it in an interview, he was like, yeah, I couldn't get my 12-hour warm-up session. I'm like, what the dude, what do you do? Like, how do you even play that long without breaking your hand? So, like, he literally could move anywhere on the planet and
for the
do just
record,
fine.
playing that much fucking deathmatch is literally a net negative. You're going to make yourself worse at the game playing 12 hours of deathmatch, to the point where, like, you're getting so fatigued that you probably adjust your sensitivity to your 12-hour deathmatch sensitivity. So when you log in, you can't aim because you're like, oh my god, it feels so fast. Let me deathmatch. Like, oh, now I can barely move my arm. Now it's right. Like, what the fuck, dude? Please stop.
Koi wants to know why he's better than you.
Well, because I don't deathmatch for 12 hours a year. Okay, that's the fucking difference.
There you go. Well, question answered. That's what we do around here. Speaking of what we do around here, since this is the last episode of ELO Heaven, I'll open the floor. Vu, tell the people your final take that you want them to take with them forever.
First of all, I'm sure it's not the last episode, because I know you're gonna fucking message me for another epised in like
I was actually going to make a completely different
minimum.
talk show and then tell you to come on and host it with me.
Yeah, well, yeah, it would be like fucking rename it.
It'll be called the last episode of ELO Heaven
or some shit.
Yeah. There you go. ELO Purgatory is a better name from the theme, but I kind of like Return of By the Numbers. The last episode of ELO Heaven can be the new name.
Return of ELO Heaven.
Yeah. There you go.
Fuck's sake. Yeah. The one thing we didn't talk about was the Valve coaching rulings, because
if you got,
Mauisnake,
I think
you were the one that said you kind of like it. I just kind of feel like, I don't know. Fuck, in theory, it's better to have less opportunity for cheating.
This is a statement.
In reality, it just feels like even if someone does exploit that, unless they're talking in the middle of the round, it's just such a minimal advantage that, like, I almost want to say fuck it, just let it slide.
I would just do this. I was thinking about this earlier. So I was thinking, what actual rules would I put out there as opposed to what they have right now, which suck. And I would say that you need to give the coaches an actual metal detector wave before they get in there. They can't have their phones on them or any devices, any buzzers. Like, there needs to be, obviously, like, the admins need to do a secure, like a TSA level job on them, because if they do that, then it should be very hard in a studio environment to have any sort of external assistance. And I think if they do that, they shouldn't have restrictions on them flat out. But if they somehow don't trust that, then, you know, let coaches at the end of a round celebrate with any term, but it needs to be brief. It needs to, like, be really snappy. It can't be like a phrase during freeze time. It's just like, if they want to do an exclamation or a clap or something like that, there's no amount of information you could convey in those very quick, like, nice or clap, or, like, literally, I would be okay with them coming out with a list of terms you can use to celebrate for your team. It has to be nice, it has to be good job, or, like you know, come up with a few, and you have to use these. If you don't, and you speak in your native tongue, you will get warned, and if you do it again, you're out of there. Like, that's it. Like, just do something like that. But, like, if the admins do their job, you can't externally assist people, and that's all I need.
Yeah, the thing is, like, when people are saying, well, they could have a different nice for, like, every different strat, it's like, dude, that's not how it fucking works.
Yeah,
like,
you're gonna be very emotional.
A coach doesn't go. A coach isn't in teams. We go A. But why? No, just go A. Just go A. Like, that's the. Like, it's not like really. You don't at the beginning of a round go A. Thank you, fucking all-seeing, all-knowing coach. Like, it's like it's like, do this strat, do this adjustment, expect this. A lot of it is like, remember this anti-strat that I told you about. This is what they're doing here. That, you know, like, it's way fucking more complicated than people make it out to be. For, like, any, like, the thing is, if I was given, like, the opportunity to have, like, go A, go B, slow, fast, like, just like 8 things I could communicate at the very beginning of a round, and I was 99% sure I wouldn't get caught. Like, it would just be like, dude, it's not fucking worth it, man. Like, it's not worth it to do this.
It doesn't have the impact you're looking for. I was going to say, when you were giving us the straw man example of what a coach would say in TeamSpeak, it was a heroic effort from me to not say something about a certain person who is now disgraced. Go on, Basti.
Yeah, I think the case though that people bring up that like no one's gonna do that is just like it's been proven untrue because
people will do stuff. The question is whether it has an
people
advantage.
will do it. I just think it's just such a minimal advantage that it's like
it might even
we're gonna fuck everything else, everyone over just for one guy that's gonna cheat in like this minimally effective way.
I just think in the middle of rounds, you actually should be
middle of rounds 100%. Yeah.
You can't touch, even if your player dies and you want to comfort him with a shoulder rub or something like that. Like he could have had external assistance via a pager or a buzzer or some shit like that, to say like, touch him on the shoulder, and then in the TeamSpeak comms, it'll sound like the player came up with it. He's like, hey guys, I think they're running the setup. Let's do this. They can make it sound like it's a legitimate call, even though the coach has external assistance to know that it's like a B stack or some shit like that. Because against Gambit, dude, if someone were giving me help against Gambit and they knew what was going on the radar, I'd probably outcall Gambit a lot because they love to just blind. Man. They just love to stack.
You could Akuma their asses. You could Akuma their asses. They're
you could Akuma the hell out of them. Yeah, exactly.
That's a quote. So you know what I think, and this is always a great start to any segment. Coaches should be able to talk in the middle of rounds. They should just be able to talk. I don't understand why they were ever disbarred. Obviously, Valve's reasoning
I understand debate about this.
The reasoning at the beginning was that some teams couldn't afford a coach, and it was somehow like worse for them or whatever. And then some people that was Valve's reasoning, by the way. And then some other people in the community would say like, oh, we don't want to make it like a game of StarCraft where you just micro a bunch of units around. But that's an unrealistic expectation to have if the coach can say the whole thing. I think at that point, the coaches start to become even more important because they have more responsibility and more agency. And then you see the coach become more integral. And that's just a version of Counter-Strike I think would be more interesting to watch as an observer. But again, I am also an analytical guy, and maybe this does overly bias the game more towards a tactical setup or being able to have your anti-strats be read to you by a coach or something, and then that lowers the skill floor somehow, or I guess yeah.
I have
there's
no
many
arguments
against it, but
well, I personally like do relate some things to real sports, like and think of like basketball or football, American football, and they'll up until the play is called, the coach in football in the NFL can send them, like the guy has a microphone or a little earpiece that he can hear what the coach is saying, and literally during an NBA game the coach is calling a play as they're running down the floor. He's like run three or something like that, and then the point guard sees it and then he tells everybody else that. So literally there's live calling then. I don't really have any moral issue with coaches talking during a game. I think it should be. Yeah,
at least freeze time, if you're going to use the NFL example, right? Like,
sure, freeze time. Let them talk during freeze time because it'll just help them a little bit, and it's not going to be so game-breaking that, like, there's nothing you can say then that, like, a mid-round wouldn't. You still need an in-game leader to an extent because you need a mid-round.
Yes.
Yeah, I think freeze time is, like, a decent middle ground. I'm not a huge fan of coaches talking all the time because I feel like it does give too much of a leg up to organizations that have the money to spend, that like, you have a tier 2 team come in like Copenhagen Flames. They might have a coach, but it might just be a coach that doesn't do all the IGLing, right? And because they can't afford someone experienced enough to do that type of shit. Freeze time seems like a decent middle ground. Obviously, it's never going to fucking happen. Like, coaches are more likely to be kicked out of the room entirely.
Yes.
But yeah, I think freeze time would be a decent middle ground. I'm not personally a fan of the ability to talk all the time on LAN matches.
Well, if one of your arguments, or at least the argument you put forth, is obviously to bias it against teams that don't have the capital or don't have the backing or to attract a coach that might be able to do as good of a job. But I mean, isn't that the same thing as players? Like,
yeah, but I mean, you're just adding an additional an additional reason they can't win. They're already disadvantaged in every other fucking way. You're adding an extra thing where it just makes it even harder. Plus, the more people you have, like, potentially thinking of, like, I mean, because you can give all the players all the information on anti-strats before the game, but then they end up fucking it up because like you've given them too much information.
Yeah.
But you have a coach in the middle round where he's like remembered all this shit, and he's like, "This is this setup. This is what they do." It's like a little bit easier for the coach to remember that, which feels a little bit like oppressive as well. I don't know. It's a personal opinion. Like I fully understand people disagreeing. It's just the way I feel about it. You know.
I think that if you had a coach talking all the time, then what would be... I think it would actually just be a complete shift in how we have to think about the game a little bit, because it would not be the story of Glaive being the best IGL, it would be the story of Zonic being the best coach, assuming they have the same sort of results. And in a similar vein, you're saying like how players that are coming up would be so disadvantaged, but what if then they employed a coach? They got a grassroots coach who, you know, hasn't been... What if they got a Mix or a Koi or something like that, and I'm just saying people, you know, in the chat or whatever. And like, what if you got one of them, and then they were out calling Zonic in a BO3 or something like that? Like, and then that helped put that coach on the map to then replace Zonic in the future. Also, you know, like it would just be a different system that we'd be working with, a different structure system that would be, in my opinion, like add another element to how we see the game and talk about the greatness of a player, or is it his coach? It's just more discussions that I would be willing to have.
There you go. Well, we got arguments for and against. Mauisnake, since this is definitely 100% the last episode of ELO Heaven, do you have any sort of final subject you want to broach, since we talked about the coaching rules? Any last take you want to give us, or topic you want to discuss before we head on out?
I think my last statement is that, please, for the love of God, stop saying VP is boring. It's a tired ass angle. It's not even that. You
gotta take this one up with Thor and Dog.
It's not even, yeah. It's just simply like, you can think Jame is boring. Actually, like I actually came out. I'm okay with that.
At least frustrating.
I think
to watch sometimes.
yeah. I think Jame is kind of like, I was never really a Vanguard fan. I was a VP fan once they got Yakinder. And when I saw him, like, you know, a year ago at the IEM CIS New York event or whatever it was, like, I was like, dude, this team is amazing. And it's like the exact structure I like want to see that's so different. And so if you're not liking VP, I have a problem with that. If you have a problem with Jame, though, why don't you use that kind of logic to hate on ropz? Because ropz does the same shit.
Logic to fucking hate on the current meta of CS, where you lose A on Inferno and you 4-man save every fucking round. I just can't.
Inferno is the worst map now.
One thing that I think, like, for new viewers watching this shit, I don't want Inferno to be in any of the playoffs, even though I love Inferno, because Inferno is the prime example of lost the bomb site with one player dead. Go save. It's so fucked. Like, this is unacceptably bad levels of saving.
It's really, really lame to watch. It's been getting really lame to watch Inferno. But yeah, if people save, dude, count how many times NIP do it. Count how many times Jame does it. Count how many times even Simple does it. Like, it's not even that different, really. Like, if Simple has a 1v3 retake on B overpass, he doesn't go for it. Like, he's not gonna. It's not Simple time either. It's always Jame time. Jame used to do it too much, though, and it sucked to watch. I will say that.
A bit different now, though.
It's different. It's absolutely different now.
There's also just more of an argument.
Saving it to not do very well instead of saving it to kill
That's
people.
True. Yeah, and Jame has not been even playing well individually. So I actually think Jame has been the weakest point of VP at this event in terms of individual
which is surprising coming into it. We all thought. I mean, I guess maybe not so much. I did say that, like, obviously SANJI is a fucking bank account for the guy, so he can, like, now he's got to be a little bit more stingy. Perhaps that might have more of an effect. It's also more than just the economic aspect. I think SANJI also was the quote-unquote support player that probably did help set Jame up to look a little bit better now, and maybe he is going to be struggling for a bit. So perhaps ripe for being exploited. We don't know. We'll have to see how they contend with Heroic later on. That's just in 2 days. So if you're hungry for more major content, I hope you can fast for 24 hours or longer, and then we'll see you for the feast when it comes back. These 3 people will eventually return on your screen, perhaps not in this order, and definitely not in this overlay. But thanks, guys, for joining us, and it's been a hell of a ride. It is indeed the end of an era.